Welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 21. How is this possible? 2/7. Excuse me. Yuan looked at the huge, expanding fireball in the distant sky in surprise. Get the gun. Genichi reached out, and a 98K with a scope came into his hand. With the current technology of Lost Country, it can barely make some scopes, but they are not magnifying scopes. And Yuan doesn't need a magnifying glass either. With the strength of the night, his eyesight can clearly see the surrounding kilometer range, so Yuan's own eyes are a scope. Moreover, those knights under Yuan are top snipers, their eyes are double mirrors. Calculating the distance, the magician was about 400 meters away from him. Yuan raised the 98K rifle in his hand and took aim. The sorcerer stood still in the air, easy to aim. Senior brother 12. Kill them all and avenge the brothers. Yes, junior brother, you are now the great master of the sky, which is at the same level as our teacher. All of you, let my senior brothers be buried with me. The remaining 7 magicians shouted angrily. This was their anger towards Yuan. Sky Mage. That's right, now that he has made a breakthrough, he has reached the magic standard of a Sky Mage. A Sky Mage can really soar in the sky, and the monstrous magic power can even destroy hundreds of people with a single blow. The Sky Mage's eyes were full of flames, and he scanned the line of Ross's army 400 meters ahead. He is angry. He is angry. Since you can't find where the Mage of the Kingdom of Loss is, then don't look for it. Destroy them all. Now I am the great Mage of the sky, standing in the sky, overlooking all living beings, and above all people. The Sky Mage was extremely proud in his heart, with magic power surging all over his body. He raised his hands and shouted loudly. He is also a Sky Mage, he is the real master. Boom! A 98K shot rang out in Yuan's hand. The bullet broke through layers of air, and the distance of 400 meters was reached in an instant. Modern rifles use intermediate power bullets, but the bolt-action rifles of World War II use full-power rifle bullets. That is to say, the power of a single shot of a bolt-action rifle during World War II is much stronger than that of modern firearms. Penetrating power is also much stronger. I will be above all beings in the mainland. Boom! Before he finished speaking, a snowflake burst out on his head, his skull was broken, and blood was splashed everywhere. Yuan could clearly see the shape of the magician's brain. The flames that gathered in the sky instantly dissipated. The corpse of the Sky Mage fell rapidly from the sky, and with a muffled bang, it fell to the ground. The eyes of the 7 magicians in the back were about to pop out of their sockets. They looked at the corpse that fell to the ground in shock, their bodies trembling, and their eyes were full of disbelief. How is it possible? Sky Master, what a mighty existence that is, how could he die so easily without even seeing the opponent's face? Sky Mage, the protective cover on his body is enough to withstand 98K's attack, but this person has just broken through to this level, and his foundation is unstable. Even though his magic power is overwhelming, under his anger, all his magic power is used to condense the dozens of people in the sky. A huge fireball with a diameter of 1 meter. Although his magic power is huge, his body is still flesh and blood. The same goes for those knights, whose bodies are still flesh and blood. The big knights are hard enough to resist swords, but they absolutely cannot resist bullets. All of them, sniper. Genichi waved his hand, and hundreds of knights holding 98K in the queue raised their guns. Aim at the remaining 7 mages in the distance. Hundreds of knights, each with a visual distance of 1,000 meters, do not need a magnifying glass, they are natural marksmen and snipers. Let's go. We can't stay here for long. What method did they use to kill 12 junior brothers? The remaining 7 mages were furious, but there were still calm people among them. So under the strong order of the elder brother, the remaining 7 of them began to retreat. But it's too late to leave now. Shooting. Hundreds of knights had aimed their guns at these 7 people long ago. Bang 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 bang. Intensive gunshots sounded, and hundreds of bullets shot at the 7 magicians across a distance of hundreds of meters in an instant. At this moment, the 7 of them turned their backs to the Ross army line. Their respective magic shields opened and they were about to escape. But suddenly hundreds of bullets came rushing through the air. Crack, crack. Their shields were instantly smashed by bullets. Puff puff. The sound of bullets entering the body continued to sound, and the sound of bullets piercing the air continued to sound around the 7 people. The bullets passed by, and their bodies trembled. Blossoming blood flowers bloomed everywhere behind them. The 7 mouths vomited blood, and each of them had full resentment in their eyes. The eldest brother was dripping with blood, and his robes were all stained red with blood. He resisted a mouthful of blood gushing up from his throat, turned around and glanced at the resentful Ross Kingdom array. What exactly is it? It's not magic, you can only hear the sound, but you can't see the fluctuation of its magic power, and you can't see the trajectory at all if it is fast. What exactly is it? Bang 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 bang. Another burst of gunfire. The elder brother was shot several times again, and the remaining magicians beside him fell to the ground screaming. He was the only one who insisted on standing, but at this moment he couldn't stand anymore, and fell to his knees with a plop, and his body fell to the ground. The blood spilled all over the ground, and he died. How can this be? Ragnar's eyes were red and bloodshot, and he roared angrily. Chapter 22 Victory still belongs to me, Ragnar. 3/7. P.S. Today's third update, the author is a little worried about whether all 7 chapters can be updated today. After all, the code words are also very tiring. The author will try his best. P.S. Other authors update up to 5 chapters a day, and even 3 chapters. I am the only one who updates 7 chapters a day. For the sake of the author's update, please do your best to give some votes. P.S. The results of this book are really dismal. In the same period of books, the number of words in this book is twice that of other books, but the scores of other books are 3 or 4 times that of this book. P.S. Give more flowers and evaluation tickets. These are free of charge. Readers who like this book, please vote more. Master is dead. Master is dead. The 70,000 ordinary soldiers of the Not Coalition Army have not advanced much in the main formation, and many of them are yelling in fear. And looking at the cavalry charging forward, the cavalry in the rear screamed and rode their horses to escape, but the horses were already startled by the gunshots. These cavalry were harvested and fell to the ground by the terrifying firepower of the MG-42 general-purpose machine gun like wheat. And the cavalry in the back shouted in terror, hoping to escape from this purgatory-like battlefield. They dismounted and wanted to escape, but most of them were trampled to death by their own cavalry. The camp was in chaos, and a huge number of their own people were trampled to death for a while. Everyone charge me. There are only 2,000 of them. All charge me. Ragnar roared, commanding the army. Boom 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 boom. Suddenly at this time the drums of war sounded, but instead of attacking, they retreated. Who can beat the retreat drum? Ragnar glared. I got knocked. Lotix and Ragnar looked at each other. Why retreat? Ragnar roared. Most of these are the troops of my kingdom of Loth. We have no reason to fight the kingdom of Loth. I came here for the sake of your teacher, but in the end I came, but I accompanied a total of 25,001 cavalry, 1,000 knights. They are all the people of my kingdom of Lot, and the foundation of my kingdom of Lot. You don't feel sorry for them dead, but I am the king of the kingdom of Lot, so I feel sorry for you. Lotix roared at Ragnar, watching his soldiers die miserably on the spot without even being able to touch the enemy. His heart was dripping with blood. He can no longer let Ragnar use his soldiers to carry out acts of knowingly sending them to death. No. Their mages have been carrying out such a large-scale attack, and their magic power will soon be exhausted. As long as we attack now, we will surely die with our numerical advantage. Ragnar pulled out the long sword at his waist abruptly. He turned around and stepped on his horse and rode out. Warriors of the Nord Kingdom, come with me. Crazy, he's crazy. Lotix sat back in his seat weakly. Father, Little Prince Lot asked from the side. Needless to say, of course it's a retreat. If he wants to bring his own army to die, then let him do it. Lotix got up suddenly, he turned and mounted his horse, and left with his army. Originally, he was thinking about whether his son could learn from a magician so that he could develop a relationship with Leander. But looking at it now, if he becomes an enemy of the kingdom of loss, if he stays here, his life will be lost. Life is gone, what can I enjoy the future glory and wealth? The army of the kingdom of Lot has withdrawn. Yuan was sitting at the rear of his army, he squinted his eyes and saw a large number of enemy troops retreating in the distance. "Your Majesty, the people of the Nord Kingdom have not left." Rhodes pointed to the Nord soldiers who had begun to charge. "Warriors of the Kingdom of Nord. The magicians of the Kingdom of Ross are almost exhausted. They all charge with me, kill an enemy, and get a reward of 100 gold coins." Ragnar rode his horse and took the lead. He waved the long sword in his hand, and a layer of shield automatically emerged from the rune magic armor on his body. In addition to his own magic shield, he was protected by 2 layers of shield at the moment. "Go, go. Swear to die to follow His Royal Highness. Kill all the losers. There must be a reckless man under a heavy reward." Driven by some people, 20,000 infantrymen of the Nord Kingdom launched an attack on the front line of the Kingdom of Loss. "Stop shooting." Yuan gave an order at this time, and all the troops stopped shooting. At this time, the remaining cavalry and knights on the middle battlefield are all desperately taking advantage of this opportunity to escape like evil spirits escaping from hell. Ha 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 ha. What did I say? Their mage group really has no magic power. When Ragnar heard that the sound stopped, and the strange magic was silent, he looked up to the sky and laughed. "Everyone rush." 20,000 soldiers screamed densely and carried out a fearless charge. The reason why Yuan ordered to stop shooting was because he wanted to wipe out these people. The cavalry in the middle is no longer a threat, they have no courage to fight against themselves, and the enemy's infantry is too far away from him, so put them closer to fight. This time can also cool down the red barrel of the MG42 general purpose machine gun. Just after shooting for a while, the barrels of all the machine guns have turned from pitch black to red. The barrel is too hot, take this opportunity to change the barrel. Replace the barrel of a light machine gun with a barrel of a heavy machine gun. The rate of fire can reach 1,500 rounds per minute. The MG42 general purpose machine gun can switch back and forth between a light machine gun and a heavy machine gun, just change the barrel. The infantry formation of the Nord Kingdom gradually approached. 2 kilometers, 1,500 meters, 1,000 meters, 700 meters, 500 meters, 400 meters, 300 meters. Sure enough, none of their magicians have any magic power. Ragnar was excited for a while, and at the same time, he also hated Lotix who had just left with his troops. "If you leave me in times of crisis, then don't blame me for attacking you." After making up his mind to destroy the Kingdom of Loth, he would attack Lotix. Ragnar yelled, "Archer!" The army of the Nord Kingdom immediately bent their bows and set up arrows, ready to shoot arrows. Shoot arrows at a distance of 200 meters, and a round of arrow rain will wipe out all Ross's troops. Ragnar thought excitedly. Victory still belongs to him. Yuan is not worthy to be his enemy at all. Shoot all. Obtaining Yuan's signal, Luo gave a loud shout. Suddenly stagnated for a while, the terrifying firepower that made people feel like a nightmare started again in an instant. Chapter 23 Winning. After all, there are many people against few people. The side with few people wins. 4/7. P.S. Today is the 4th update, and there are 3 more. 115 MG42 general purpose machine guns, nearly 2,098 kiloseconds fired at the same time, and the roar of gunfire resounded throughout the sky again. This is impossible, don't they have no magic power? Ragnar rode on the horse, roaring in fear and anger. "Your Highness!" A knight rode to his side. "Your Highness, let's go!" cried the knight. "Don't go, we haven't lost yet." Ragnar glared at him. "Your Highness, look around." The knight hadn't finished speaking when a bullet pierced through his helmet and shot into his head. The armor shattered, and the corpse fell directly from the horse. Ragnar was stunned. He looked around in horror. Apart from the gunshots in the distance, there were unstoppable screams of soldiers resounding in his ears. "Ah, come on. Their magicians are still attacking. Run away." Countless dense bullets formed barrages and instantly moved forward like invisible walls. The Nord soldiers in the front all screamed and fell to the ground, while the Nord soldiers in the back were frightened by the gunfire in an instant. Fear. Die. A Nord soldier's leg was pierced by a bullet, and the bullet's tremendous kinetic energy broke his leg in an instant. The Nord soldier fell to the ground and screamed. Beside him, a soldier who was still running was pierced through the head by a bullet, and the head above the eyebrows was instantly shattered by the bullet, bursting like a watermelon. The companions around were pierced by bullets one by one, and blood was spattered everywhere. The Nord soldiers fell to the ground like harvested wheat, with blood splattered and corpses everywhere. Run away! Help me! In an instant, the 20,000 army, whose morale was like a rainbow just now, collapsed in an instant. Subscribe to Chinese novel Audio Wave. The Nord soldiers wanted to flee the battlefield as if they were fleeing from the most feared demons. Go ahead. Yuan drew out the long sword at his waist and swung it from top to bottom. The 2,000 Ross soldiers were either fearful or excited. They took steps, their black military boots stepped on the ground, and the 98K in their hands kept shooting at the enemy. How could you lose? How could you lose? Ragnar's expression was dull. Looking at the dying and fleeing Nord soldiers in front of him, he could only mutter this sentence in his mouth. From the initial furious attack on the Kingdom of Loss, to the high-spirited command of an army of 110,000. Then there was the extreme excitement of thinking that he could definitely beat Yuan before the battle. And now the sluggishness is unbelievable. How long has it been before and after, and the result is completely different from what he thought. All the 12 senior brothers died unexpectedly, the entire army of 30,000 cavalry was annihilated, the fleeing of friendly troops, and the defeat of one's own army completely crushed this young prince, His Royal Highness. Bang bang. 2 bullets hit 2 layers of shields on his body. The first layer of shield shattered, but the bullet did not penetrate the shield provided by the second rune armor. But soon after more bullets came, cracks appeared on the second shield, and finally shattered. The bullet penetrated into his flesh and blood, and Ragnar felt that the whole world had turned gray, and time seemed to have slowed down. The warm liquid flowed from his body, he looked down dully, and touched it with his hand. It was a shocking blood red. He was bleeding. Why? He didn't hit the arrow, and he didn't feel the magic wave. Ragnar fell from his horse and fell heavily to the ground, his armor was shattered, and blood spilled from his mouth. Compared to the soil that had been stained red with flesh and blood, what he saw was still a blue sky. There is also an eagle soaring in the sky. Is he going to die? A few lost soldiers in pitch-black military uniforms, with pitch-black busts covering their chests, steel helmets on their heads and black iron masks on their faces, slowly approached the fallen Ragnar. These Ross soldiers looked at each other and nodded to each other, then they raised the 98K with bayonets in their hands, and stabbed at Ragnar on the ground. The sharp bayonet pierced through the shattered armor, and when it was pulled out, another splotch of blood was brought up. Ragnar stared at the sky with his lustreless pupils, his life was coming to an end. When the angle of view is raised, 2,000 Luosi soldiers are holding 98K with bayonets and walking in the grassland full of corpses. When they encountered Nord soldiers who were seriously injured and survived on the ground, they would go up to make up for the knife. Looking around, there are more than 10,000 corpses on the grassland. None of them belong to the Kingdom of Ross. This battle is over, the entire army of the Nord Kingdom was wiped out, and the army of the Kingdom of Ross did not suffer any casualties. The eagle in the sky lifted itself up and flapped its wings away. On the winding road, a carriage was driving slowly. Yar, the battle ahead should be over, right? The young girl in the carriage asked aloud. And the elf girl driving the carriage looked stunned, her eyes widened and her mouth grew too big, as if she couldn't believe the results of her investigation at all. Yar, His Royal Highness, the young girl in the carriage, asked again and again, but the voice was much louder. Your Highness. The driving elf girl came to her senses and responded quickly. The battle ahead is over. Well, it's over. The driving elf girl nodded, and said in a daze, they won. Well, the girl in the carriage sighed, and said, how can you not win against a few thousand people? Let me pray for those dead souls in the front. This continent is fighting and killing each other. When will it be the first? The girl in the carriage was talking to herself, but the elf girl gritted her teeth and said, Your Highness, the side with fewer people wins. I know, what did you say? The girl in the carriage complained a little, but she was also stunned the next moment. The side with fewer people won. I can see clearly that they didn't have a single casualty, while the enemy had at least tens of thousands of casualties. The most frightening thing is that my eagle detectives didn't feel any magic on the side with fewer people. Fluctuation, on the contrary, there is an unstable magic power fluctuation at the level of a sky mage on the side of 100,000 people. The driving girl's tone was full of shock. What? How is this possible? The girl in the car opened the curtain abruptly, revealing an extremely pretty face with delicate features. At this moment, this beautiful pretty face was full of astonishment. Chapter 24. Where did they go? 5/7. P.S. Thank you Yang 55555_2016 for voting for the monthly ticket, and thank you for the 100 VIP points rewarded, and thank you for the 200 VIP points rewarded at 258, 375, 05, and 62. The author of Puji would like to thank all readers for their support. Thanks. Because your name is displayed as a string of numbers in the background, and a string of numbers in the book cannot be typed, so you can only separate them with commas. You mean, the side with 100,000 people lost. They failed to kill even one enemy. Her Royal Highness asked with a small face full of astonishment. Yar nodded. Not only that, you didn't feel any magic fluctuations on the side with fewer people. Instead, there is a sky mage on the side of 100,000 people. The side with 100,000 people lost without meeting anyone from the side with fewer people. At least tens of thousands of people died. Under the constant questioning of His Highness the elf girl, the driving girl seemed to be nodding in a daze. Are you sure you didn't lie to me? Oh my lord, I really didn't lie to you. Yar said very confidently. However, how is this possible? Thousands of mortals, how could it be possible to defeat an army of 100,000 people, especially if there are sky mages in the army? Her Highness the elf girl tilted her head, her little face was full of doubts, and she couldn't figure out what was going on. In her cognition, a sky mage can wipe out thousands of mortal troops by himself, but it is obvious that this matter has completely exceeded her cognition. Your Highness, the reason why we traveled to the mainland is to encounter this kind of impossible and unthinkable thing. At this moment, Yar said to the elf girl very excitedly. Yes, Her Royal Highness the elf girl was excited, and immediately became excited. Let's move forward quickly and find that army. I want to meet their leader and personally ask what's going on. This kind of thing has never happened in the whole continent. Maybe we will be the first elves to know about this kind of thing. This elven girl seems to be inexplicably obsessed with the word, number 1. She patted Yar's shoulder excitedly with her small hand. Hurry up, drive faster, we must catch up, otherwise we will never be able to find them. I can't solve the mystery of this matter. Oh, don't take pictures, Your Highness, your shoulders hurt. Yar drove the carriage forward in a daze. Your Majesty, we waited for the army to fulfill our mission. Except for the tens of thousands of troops from the Lot Kingdom who fled, we have wiped out the remaining 20,000 Nord troops here. Rotis was wearing a new military uniform with a black front breastplate covering his chest. He reported to Gu Yuan excitedly. And we didn't sacrifice a single person, only one soldier tripped over the corpse of a Nord soldier and sprained his ankle. Very good, after burying the body, the teacher will return to the city. There was a smile on Gu Yuan's face. The power of guns in this world is greater than he imagined. Soldiers of the Kingdom of Ross. Bury all the corpses and prepare to return to the city. Rotis turned around and roared, and the 2,000 soldiers who were still cleaning the battlefield responded with great excitement, yes. Long live Your Majesty. Go back. Your Majesty is invincible. The soldiers were very excited and shouted loudly. The fight started in the morning, but ended in less than an hour. The rest of the time, soldiers have been digging pits with shovels and other tools to bury the bodies. After all, there are tens of thousands of corpses, in case there is a plague of germs, although there is no one on the plane, it must be taken just in case. Jerry was carrying 98K on his back. He had just moved a shattered and disfigured corpse, and an extremely strong smell of blood rushed straight into his nostrils. He quickly took off the iron mask on his face. Whoa. Spit it out. After vomiting, his face was a little pale, looking at the corpses on the ground and the corpses all around him. Are these hell-like scenes caused by the weapon in his hand? Terrible. But this weapon is used by him. by the country led by His Majesty the King whom he is loyal to, and by the army of his motherland. In order to defend his family and country, he can only take up arms and kill the enemy. He has no regrets about the tragedy they caused in front of him. Such a victory was brought to him by their great king. Yuan was wearing a half-armor, black military boots, stepped on the grass, and buckled the long sword at his waist. Yuan looked at the slanting sunset in the west. The fighting lasted only an hour, but the burying of the bodies lasted from morning until dusk in the afternoon. This battle can be regarded as basically emptying out all the ammunition that was vigorously produced some time ago. But it's worth it. Win the battle and Yuan will be able to produce more ammo, produce more weapons, and recruit more soldiers. In Yuan's heart, the sunset of the western mountain means that this continent should also come to an end. Now that he is here, he will set off a revolution that will sweep across the entire continent. The Industrial Revolution will be completely set off by him, and the entire continent will surrender at his feet in the future. In the dark night, on the grassland battlefield. As soon as the carriage drove here, Yar smelled an extremely strong smell of blood as soon as she arrived here. Although the corpse was buried, there was still a strong smell of blood around here. Several wild wolves were looking for the remaining flesh and blood on the ground in the dark night, their eyes emitting a fierce green light in the dark night. Yar waved her hand, a white light flashed in her hand, and several wild wolves ran away with howling as if they had been frightened by something. Here, Her Highness the elf girl walked out of the carriage clutching her nose, her delicate eyebrows were furrowed, and the smell of blood in the air showed that this battle was even more tragic than she had imagined. It just seems that only one person died. Where did they go? Her Highness the elf girl looked at Yar. There. Yar pointed in a direction. There is the direction of Ross City. Chapter 25 Victory and Triumph. 6/7. P.S. This is the 6th update, and there is another update. The battle is over, and the killing value is being integrated. Sky Mage. 1000, 12 Magicians, 3600 PS. Ragnar is also a magician, 3 Great Knights, 1500, 1200 Knights, 12,000, Ordinary Soldiers, 46,870. Total kill value obtained, 64,970. Reward 5-star lucky draw once. A Sky Mage is only worth 1,000 killing points. 12 Magicians, 1 is only 300 points, an Ordinary Knight is only 10 kill points, and the Great Knight is only 500 kill points, which is too cheap. As for Ordinary Soldiers, they only have a little kill value. On the way back to the city, Yuan was bored and checked the system. Question mark. Lucky draw. Mall. Military technology tree. Ministry technology tree. Once kill value. 66,648. Popularity value. 32,450. The last time I bought something in the mall, I still had 1,678 left. This value is correct, and the popularity value has been rising for a while. Yuan couldn't help but began to calculate. The kingdom of Talos was the weakest among the surrounding countries before, with a population of only 500,000, while the kingdom of Nord had a population of more than 3 million, and the kingdom of Lot had a population as high as 6 million. The Kizi kingdom also has a population of over 2.5 million. If he integrates all 3 surrounding countries, Yuan can build a country with a population of over 12 million. Once there are 12 million people, Yuan will have more human resources and land resources to build factories, manufacture weapons, and recruit troops. The Gustone Alliance Empire is composed of hundreds of countries, and not all of them are of one mind. At that time, Yuan will be able to use the 12 million people as a basis to eat away at the small countries of the Gustone Alliance Empire. The war potential of technological power is unlimited. And Yuan has a system. Every time he fights, he can get kill points, so Yuan can completely support wars with battles. As for the hearts of the people in neighboring countries, most of the ordinary people in this era are ignorant, and it is normal for them to see the rise and fall of a country. As long as the preferential policies improve the living standards of the people, it is impossible for them to betray the King Yuan. Let me ask you, if you can live in a more developed country where not only food and clothing are adequate, but everyone can be the master of their own affairs, and live in a higher-level country, then you still choose to endure the exploitation of the nobles at that time, without food and clothing. Not a warm country. Everyone will choose the former. This week's mall refresh items are as follows. Bazooka manufacturing blueprint, price, 15,000. Internal combustion engine basic manufacturing engineering drawings, price, 20,000. Nimitz, class aircraft carrier and fighter group, price, 15 million. Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter design drawings, 300,000. Price of teachers group and supporting textbooks in the middle of the 20th century, teachers group of 500 people, and supporting textbooks, 30,000. When Yuan saw the aircraft carrier and the Messerschmitt fighter jets, his eyes straightened. It's a pity, I can't afford it. It seems that the road can only be taken step by step, and the food can only be eaten one bite at a time. It is impossible to eat a fat man in one go. Fortunately, a lot of things refreshed this time are what Yuan needs very much. Especially the internal combustion engine. After this comes out, Yuan will be able to build cars. When the car is built, will the tank be far behind? Moreover, the aircraft of World War I and World War II also used internal combustion engines. The power and working efficiency of the internal combustion engine are more than 10 times that of the steam engine. With the internal combustion engine, there is also the basis for the development of all armored vehicles, tanks, and aircraft. But the problem now is the cutting-edge technology workers. Yuan only has the 100 people he bought from the system at the beginning. And the ordinary workers recruited from Rose City can only do some assembly line work. It is not a problem to manufacture basic individual weapons, but research on tanks and aircraft requires cutting-edge talents. That's what Yuan lacks these days. Yuan bought the bazooka design blueprints, internal combustion engine basic manufacturing blueprints, and finally the mid-20th century teacher corps. The last one is very important. With the teacher group, we can open schools on a large scale and open up the wisdom of the people. This is very important for Laos, where half of one foot has stepped into the Industrial Revolution and the other foot is still in the feudal society. After the purchase, Yuan spent 65,000, and his kill value was reduced to more than 1,000 again. Only 1648 remain. Another night before liberation. But it's all worth it. As for the one remaining 5-star lucky draw, save it first. When Yuan played games in his previous life, he liked to save the number of lucky draws. Next, look at the People's Livelihood Technology tree. Now there are still more than 30,000 people's livelihood value. Yuan looked at the People's Livelihood Technology tree, which has been lit up with alternating current, basic electronic components, looms, steelmaking, glass making, artificial leather, plastic cloth, etc. thing. At this time, Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up, and he saw a Minsheng technology. Hybrid rice, light up price, 20,000 people's livelihood value. This is definitely a good thing. With hybrid rice, food production will increase exponentially. Without hesitation, Yuan immediately turned on the technology of hybrid rice. It has been 2 days since I returned to Rose City. The 2-day march made Yuan more determined to pay attention to the development of the car. Too slow. Your Majesty the King, long live your Majesty. Before Yuan entered Rose City, he heard the cheers of countless people. Chapter 26 Elf. Want to see me? 7/7. P.S. Today's update is finally over, but I'm exhausted. Readers, please vote more. Flowers, evaluation votes, these authors are not too few. And no money. I saw countless Ross nationals lined up on both sides of the road, cheering and celebrating the victory of their country's army. Yuan looked over and saw that all the civilians were wearing brand new clothes, and they were clean and tidy. Although they were still a little thin, their mental outlooks were several times better than they were half a month ago. This is also due to the fact that Yuan has developed a lot of technologies for people's livelihood. The loom flooded the city with cloth, and the price of common clothes plummeted. And the various factories opened by the state in Rose City are constantly recruiting workers. Now everyone in Rose City has a job, with a considerable income, no hunger at all, full food and warm clothes. All the citizens have seen the changes in the past half month. They naturally respect and love Ji Yuan, the king who can bring them happiness and a good life from the bottom of their hearts. Ji Yuan rode on the horse, he smiled and waved to the people around him. Your Majesty just waved at me. Your Majesty just smiled at me. A group of girls on the side of the road screamed and shouted. The soldiers looked at the people on both sides of the road, and their hearts were all warm. What's more, they accepted the cheers, and suddenly a drop of tears fell down. They are being embraced and welcomed by all. They are soldiers who defend their country. And all of this was brought to them by their respect, His Majesty the Great King. Sense of belonging to the army +10, glory +10, personality worship +10. The prompt from the system made Ji Yuan smile again. After one day, a carriage was driving on the road, and Yar looked at the looming city ahead. She shouted excitedly, Your Highness, we are coming. Ahead is the capital of this country. My Eagle Scouts saw the army entering the city with their own eyes. Is it finally here? The elf girl poked her head excitedly. Soon she will be able to meet the army that created the miracle of the mainland. There are no mages, only thousands of ordinary mortals, but they can defeat 100 times as much as themselves. 100,000 enemy troops with sky mages can be called the army of gods. Didn't she leave the mainland just to see this kind of impossible miracle? Her Royal Highness, the elf girl, couldn't help but start thinking wildly. What kind of man would the leader of such a godlike army be? Is it a middle-aged general with a firm face, or a burly old man with white beard and hair, or a young and handsome young general? Could it be a beautiful general with a hot body, 1.5 meters long legs, big breasts, and a big knight in armor? Thinking of this, His Royal Highness the elf girl unconsciously glanced at her flat chest and petite figure. Well, just now, that was what she imagined was the figure she wanted. Ji Yuan, who was dealing with government affairs in Rose City, naturally wouldn't know that there was an elf girl outside Rose City who was thinking wildly about him. She had already imagined him from a middle-aged general with a firm face to a beautiful general with a fiery personality and a peerless figure. After all, the elf girl has never seen Ji Yuan before, and the most wonderful thing about people is imagination. It's not strange to have a bigger brain. Slowly, the carriage finally approached the city of Ross, and they saw many fields being planted along the way. Everywhere is full of enthusiastic, hard-working farmers. You can also see a lot of simple houses around Los Angeles. Since half a month ago, Ji Yuan has already moved most of the population to Los Angeles. Now the total population of Lost City has exceeded 250,000, and this number is still increasing. In the past 2 days, there have been a large number of hybrid rice seeds, and now is the season suitable for planting, so Ji Yuan organized a large number of farmers to reclaim wasteland outside Los Angeles to grow food. Ji Yuan also has a plan to expand the army recently, expanding the army from 2,000 to 10,000. As for the farmers who cultivate the land, there will always be no shortage of people who cultivate the land. Among the people outside Los Angeles, there are many peasant women. Their sons can join the army, and they can farm the land themselves. They were originally the people of the country of Ross. It's so lively. Yar came all the way in a carriage, and saw many farmers and women who were working on the wasteland. And His Royal Highness the elf girl was also very happy to see such a scene. Elves love plants, and she loves planting too. Naturally happy to see such a scene. And many working farmers couldn't help looking at the carriage. After all, in their view, foreign strangers like Yar and Her Royal Highness Elf Princess are still very rare. Stop, who are you? When Yar was about to pass the city gate with the carriage, they were stopped by soldiers standing guard at the city gate. Us. We are elven travelers who traveled the continent, and we want to meet the people who led your army in previous battles. Yar immediately said proudly, her small chest puffed up. Elf. The soldiers at the door were taken aback, but when Yar mentioned the previous war, he immediately became vigilant. In Los Angeles, Ji Yuan was dealing with government affairs when Stevens walked in and whispered something to Ji Yuan. Elf. Want to see me? Ji Yuan was a little surprised and puzzled. Chapter 27 Angelina. 1/7. P.S. Today's update is late, and I don't know if today's 7th update can be completed. The author will try his best. At this moment, Yuan is sitting in his palace designing the flag of his country. In the past, the flag of the Kingdom of Loss was a white background with a red border, with crossed swords and shields in the middle. To be honest, the countries on the mainland that use crossed swords and shields as their flags are already rotten, so Yuan had to redesign a flag in order to distinguish the flags. But it doesn't have to be too complicated, just simple. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. So the flag designed by Yuan is a simple black flag with a red dragon in the middle. This dragon pattern is different from other dragon patterns on the mainland. What Yuan painted is a traditional Chinese dragon totem. Black represents solemnity, and red dragon represents the desire to attack that can devour everything. Although the flag is simple, it gives people a sense of solemnity at first glance. At this time, Stevens walked in and whispered something to Yuan. Genichi froze. An elf wants to see me outside. This can't help but make Yuan feel puzzled. Elves are also a rare race on the mainland, and his Luosi country is also a remote place on the mainland. How could elves suddenly appear and still see him? Moreover, the two elves also mentioned the battle a few days ago, which made Yuan vigilant. Yar, look at the weapons in the hands of these ordinary soldiers. I have never seen such weapons before. The elf girl pulled Yar next to her, and she pointed to the 98K lane with bayonets on the backs of ordinary Luo's soldiers standing guard at the door. Yeah, this kind of strange weapon is too short if it is called a long spear. Yar was also puzzled. Also, Yar, have you noticed all the way here? Although the city of Ross is not glorious, the commoners at the bottom are very clean and tidy, and their mental outlook is also very good. We have seen too many small countries along the way, and their ordinary civilians are so different from those in Lost Country. Also, look at this cup. Her Royal Highness the elf girl picked up the water glass placed in front of them, and there was a certain kind of light in her eyes. I have never seen such a crystal clear water glass. Even if it is made of magic, when I saw it in the Central Magic Empire, the colored glass is not as clear as this water glass, yet they serve it for us in such an ordinary way. There was complete surprise in the tone of the elf girl's highness. Little brother, can you tell us what kind of person your king is like? At this moment, Yar approached the soldiers standing guard at the gate. Facing Yar approaching, the soldier stared straight ahead, unable to see clearly the expression on the face covered by the iron mask. Silence. Yar waited for a while but didn't get a response, so she made a fool of herself and returned to her seat angrily. And the golden eyes of His Royal Highness the Elf Princess became brighter and brighter. Even the ordinary soldiers were so disciplined. She felt more and more that this small country called Lost Country was different. At the same time, she became even more curious about the King of Ross. His Majesty the King is here. Line up. Stand at attention. Salute. Suddenly there was a loud shout from outside, the sound of footsteps in unison, and at the same time there was a loud shout, "Long live your Majesty." There is a strong sense of Yuan's personality cult in the tone of every ordinary soldier. Yuan, who walked over, was a little ashamed. At this moment, he felt that the soldiers under him were becoming more and more German. And he, Yuan, seems to be the bearded head of state in World War II. No, you can't be a mustache head of state. Even if you want to do it, you have to be a successful mustache head of state. He came. The eyes of His Royal Highness the Elf Girl lit up. Staring straight at the door, I kept fantasizing about what kind of person would come in soon. The closer the footsteps came, the harder the heart of the Elf Girl's Highness beat. Crackling. The door opened, and His Highness the Elf Girl's heart was shocked. The next moment, a young man walked in. He was wearing a pitch-black military uniform, with an armed belt tied around his waist, and black military boots on the ground under his feet. The big brimmed hat on his head was slightly lowered so that his eyes could not be seen, but from the high nose bridge and the handsome face as sharp as a knife, it was known that this was a handsome and extraordinary man. As soon as he appeared, he gave people a sense of oppression from a high-ranking person. In the eyes of His Highness, the Elf Girl, the strange military uniform is also very personal. Hello, my name is Angelina. I'm an elf traveler, from the elf tribe in the east of the central region, and a descendant of the ancient elf empire. Angelina felt that she had never been so nervous before, and suddenly bowed 90 degrees in front of Ji Yuan, introducing herself loudly. But Yar was taken aback and froze in place. When Ji Genichi entered the door, he saw a blonde girl bowing to him, and he himself was a little confused. Angelina's drooping face immediately turned red after reacting. What was she just doing? What if you scare people? Hee. A smile appeared on Ji Yuan's face, but he felt that this elf girl was quite cute. I am Ji Yuan, Ji Yuan III, the king of the kingdom of loss. Ji Yuan went to the main seat in the room and sat down. This room was originally a reception room, so Ji Yuan, as the host, of course had to sit at the main seat. I don't know what Miss Angelina wants from me. Ji Yuan looked at Angelina, who had raised her head and her cheeks were slightly flushed. The moment Angelina raised her head, Ji Yuan's eyes froze. He had never seen such a beautiful girl. Chapter 28 Abduct Her Royal Highness the Elf Princess 2/7 Ask for flowers. Ask for collection. P.S. Today's second update, there's still a fifth update. Damn it. Ask for flowers, ask for all kinds of tickets, readers. Angelina and her entourage, Yar, are elven travelers, descendants of the ancient elven empire, and princesses of an elven tribe in the eastern part of the Middle Domain. In order to experience the cultures of various ethnic groups in the mainland, Angelina took Yar to travel on the road. I have seen a lot of novel things along the way, but it is clear that this ordinary exotic style can no longer satisfy Angelina's heart. And this time they came to the country of Ross through the grassland of the Orc Empire. After seeing the previous battle between the Kingdom of Ross and the allied forces of Nod in the country of Ross, she was very impressed with the method by which the army of the Kingdom of Ross defeated an enemy that was 100 times larger than her own. Curious. In Angelina's view, Ji Yuan's army simply created a miracle on the entire continent. No, it is not an exaggeration to call it a miracle. A mere mortal army of thousands of people, without any magical creations, without a single magician, defeated 100,000 enemies, especially among the 100,000 enemies, there was a sky mage. So, you want to know how I defeated the Not Alliance army in the previous battle on the Wali Plains? Ji Yuan looked at the two elf girls in front of him whose faces were flushed with excitement, and whose golden eyes were full of expectation. Angelina nodded vigorously, her golden eyes filled with anticipation and excitement. She is about to solve the mystery of this miracle, which is really a huge attraction for her. I refuse to answer. Ji Genichi's words immediately filled the faces of Angelina and Yar with disappointment. Why? Angelina's small face was immediately lost. Because this is a military secret. In the country of Ross, if you inquire about military secrets, you will be arrested for espionage and then executed. Ji Yuan looked at the elf girl, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Angelina and Yar took a step back unconsciously, their faces full of vigilance. But Ji Yuan changed the subject and his voice was drawn out. This made the two girls feel hopeful, and they hurriedly asked, but what? If you are my Ross citizens, you can join the army, and when you reach a certain level, you will know this secret. Ji Yuan said. Then I will join the country of Ross. Angelina also lost her temper. She has always been a stubborn elf. Your Highness. Yar was startled, and hurriedly stopped her. Anyway, our elf tribe doesn't belong to any country, so it's no problem for me to join the country of loss. It's a pity that Angelina had already made up her mind. She clenched her little fists. Very well, Stevens. Ji Yuan nodded and called out. His Majesty. Stevens immediately went to Ji Yuan's side. Take them to apply for household registration, and enter the private household first. Ji Yuan said. Yes. A smile immediately appeared on Stevens' old face. Does he know what Ji Yuan's words mean? A civilian household is the household registration of a farmer. Ji Yuan gave these two elves the household registration, which means that they will have a lot of difficulties in getting in touch with the military. After all, the weapons of Ji Yuan's army are the foundation of the country of Luosi. It is impossible for Ji Yuan to say that two rare elves want to join the army and let them join. Ji Yuan was still wary. Didn't elves claim to be close to all plants, so let them start from the grassroots. Farming is also close to plants. Anyone has to start from the bottom and work hard. I look forward to the day when you will be promoted to my side. Yuan stood up, and his handsome figure came in front of Angelina. He patted Angelina's shoulder, and then put the big brimmed hat on his head on Angelina's little head with long blonde hair. This hat is for you, don't live up to my expectations. After Yuan left, Angelina looked at Yuan's back, wearing a black military cap that was a size too big on his head, with an expression of displeasure on his pretty face. Wait. Humph. Your Highness, we are boarding a pirate ship. And Yar cried bitterly from the side. Yuan, who left the reception room, had a relaxed expression on his face. Unexpectedly, 2 elf girls were abducted in this way, and Yuan was very moved by the beauty of the elves. After all, this is not the PS, makeup, and artificial beauties on the internet in the previous life, but a pure and natural elf beauty. And Yuan decided to monitor the 2 elf girls for a period of time before talking. Your Majesty, samples of the bazooka and PM-38 mortar have been produced. At this time, an officer came to Yuan's side to report. So fast. It's only been 2 days. Yuan was a little surprised. Your Majesty, this is also due to the craftsmen you found. They seem to be very familiar with these things and quickly made samples. The officer replied. Well, take me to have a look. Yuan nodded. It seems that the craftsmen of the system are still strong, but it is a pity that there are only 100 craftsmen in the system. However, these craftsmen also basically accepted some apprentices. They are all civilian workers with clean backgrounds and someone at home serving in the army. If anyone is most loyal to the country of Ross, apart from the soldiers and officers of the army, it is these civilian workers. After all, Yuan recruited them to work and gave them a high-quality life, and they also had family members serving in the army. The army is undoubtedly the most loyal to Yuan. The king's loyalty is also very high. By the way, Your Majesty, there is another piece of good news. The internal combustion engine has been successfully built, and the first agricultural machines are being built. Well, I see. Yuan nodded. Regarding the aspect of agricultural machinery, Yuan was not too surprised. After all, regarding the aspect of Minsheng technology, Yuan has enlightened a lot about agriculture. It is also reasonable that agricultural machinery can be manufactured in the first time. Chapter 29 Machine. What? 3/7. PS. Today is the 3rd update, and there are 4 more updates. The military proving ground is located in a mountain outside the city of Ross. A battalion arranged by Yuan was stationed here. The fort is heavily guarded, and dozens of MG-42 general-purpose machine guns are scattered all over the fortress, ensuring that any incoming enemy can be attacked from any angle. At this moment, Yuan came to this military testing ground under the escort of the guards. Here he saw prototypes of the bazooka and the 120mm PM-38 mortar. The bazooka was an anti-tank weapon used by the U.S. Army during World War II. The caliber is 60mm, the total length is 1,350mm, and the range is 270 meters. It can be equipped with armor-piercing bombs, incendiary bombs, and smoke bombs. Although the range is not far, but the front is enough to penetrate 70mm tank armor. You must know that tank armor is not comparable to ordinary steel. As for the 120mm PM-38 mortar, this caliber can already be regarded as a field gun, but it is a mortar, but its range reaches 5,700 meters. The power is equivalent to that of a 122mm field howitzer, but it is lighter in weight, only weighing 280 kilograms, while the 122mm howitzer of the same caliber weighs 2,450 kilograms, and the power of the two is similar. In short, the 20mm PM-38 mortar is a very practical mortar. Begin experiment. Bazooka. A Ross soldier wearing a pitch-black military uniform, with his upper body covered by a front breastplate, a steel helmet on his head, and an iron mask on his face, entered the field with a thick black bazooka on his shoulder. Opposite him was a steel wall. The thickness is a full 7 centimeters. Call out. The bazooka fired, and a shell hit the steel wall. Boom. With a loud bang, the steel wall burst instantly in the flames. Fragments flew everywhere, and the sound was deafening. Very good. Ji Yuan was excited, the power had reached his expectations. Here, Ji Yuan was conducting weapon experiments, while Angelina was taken to a farmland outside the city. Angelina and Yar stared blankly at the 10 acres of fields in front of them. What does it mean? The two asked blankly. Planting the land, you will be farmers in the country of Ross in the future, of course you have to plant the land, these are the seeds given to you, and the two of you will be in charge of this land in the future. Stevens, with what appeared to be a genial smile on his old face, said. He pointed to a nylon bag lying nearby. I am an elf. Angelina blushed, she said. That's right, it's because you are elves. His Majesty the King said that you two are responsible for such a large area because you are elves. Don't elves claim to be close to all plants? Crops are also plants, so His Majesty's order yes, I want you two to plant all the 20 acres of land within 2 days. Stevens said. By the way, you have to hurry up, or you will have nothing to eat. After speaking, Stevens left without waiting for the second daughter to answer. HMPH, what? It's simply contemptuous. We are elves, and you are still a princess, Your Highness. How could that king let you farm the land? He must be a very bad king. Yar kicked over the nylon bag containing the seeds, and said angrily. As soon as the nylon bag was turned over, the seeds inside were immediately scattered. Ouch, my dear. At this time, a farmer next to him was shocked when he saw it. He was very distressed and collected all the seeds on the ground. Girl, these are good seeds. His Majesty the King said that these seeds can yield 800 caddies per mu, so we can't waste them like this. Holding the seeds in his hands, the farmer said to the two girls very distressed. 800 caddies. How is it possible? Even the seeds cultivated by our elf tribe with special magic are only 500 caddies in yield, and they are still very rare. How can you, a small border country like Luo's, produce a bunch of seeds that are more productive than ours? The elves breed even better seeds, and there are so many of them. Yar glanced at her mouth, glanced at a large piece of cultivated land around her, and muttered. Anyway, she didn't believe that there would be so many seeds that were better than the seeds they cultivated by magic. Old man, is what you said true? Can these seeds really produce 800 caddies per mu? And Angelina continued to ask. Girl, I don't know what you said. I only know that His Majesty the King will not lie. His Majesty the King is a good man. After he took office, he not only exempted us from taxes, but also drove away the invading Nords. The King His Majesty even paid for us to plant the land, and now we are well fed and clothed, and our life is much better than before. The farmer spoke honestly, but he respected Ji Yuan from the bottom of his heart. These seeds are all genetically engineered seeds of hybrid rice. Hybrid rice does not simply refer to a crop, but a technology. This technology can greatly increase the yield of planted plants, reaching the level of 800 caddies per mu. In this era, the average crop yield is only 200 caddies per mu. This is a gap of 4 times. Yes, His Majesty the King is a very good man. Thanks to His Majesty the King, we are not only alive but better than before. At this time, there was a circle of farmers and women, and they all praised Ji Yuan heartily. That guy, is it so good? Hearing their praise for Ji Yuan, Angelina frowned, and couldn't help thinking about Ji Yuan who made her farm the land as soon as he came, and made people feel very bad. But, I don't know if it's good or not, but it's pretty handsome anyway. Even more beautiful than ordinary elf youths. Angelina blushed unconsciously. HMPH, since you sent me to farm the land, I'll show you what the plant magic of elves is. Angelina clenched her fist, feeling angry. Don't these people admire the King Ji Yuan very much? Then she will show her magic and completely compare the King Ji Yuan. Thug chug. Suddenly at this time a sound appeared, attracting everyone's attention. His Majesty the King has researched a new machine. Lord Stevens said that let's experiment with this new farming machine. At this time, a cry appeared, and everyone ran over. Farming machine. Angelina had doubts on her face. What is a machine? Chapter 30 are the common people living better than the royal family. 4/7. P.S. The 4th change, there are 3 more changes today. I stayed in Lost Country for 2 days, and what I saw and heard in these 2 days completely overturned Angelina and Yar's previous worldview. There are a lot of things called seeders in the field, people drive them, and one person can complete the sowing of hundreds of acres of land in one day. And in this situation, Angelina and Yar were stunned to use magic to replant the land step by step, and Angelina and Yar had to rest for a long time after the magic was exhausted. Compared with that machine, the two of them just sowed 30 acres of land in one day with the help of magic, but an ordinary person can plant 100 acres in one day with the machine. It can't compare to the speed of ordinary people, so what's the use of their plant magic? Anyway, in the past 2 days, it seemed that Yar's self-confidence as an elf magician had been hit, and she was lost and absent-minded all day long. Is it true that ordinary people are like this now? Then why did they need magicians in this world? Yuan, who is he? How can he do so many things that are impossible in the outside world? And Angelina's curiosity about Yuan kept increasing. And what surprised Angelina and Yar the most was the scene at night. The electric lights all over the street are illuminating, reflecting the night city like daytime. The second daughter stood in the middle of the street, looking at the bright street and the people passing by. They couldn't help wondering, is it night now? Bright as day. They have only seen this kind of scene in the cities of the Central Magic Empire, and in other mortal countries, only the homes of nobles can be brightly lit. And Ross Kingdom is a mortal country without any, not even one magician or magical creation. How did they manage to achieve such a scene? Your Highness, come and see, there is such a good cloth here. Yar's shout woke up the dazed Angelina. She walked over and saw Yar holding up a green silk horse very excitedly. This kind of beautifully crafted cloth is rare even in the Central Territory. Only magicians can afford it. Yar said excitedly with surprise. She never thought that in a small country like Lost City, she could see the same fine cloth as the one in Central Region. The lady was joking. These are just some ordinary cloths, and no one wants them if they are thrown on the street. The cloth peddler smiled and said to Yar. No, this kind of workmanship is obviously the best cloth in Zhongyu. Yar said suspiciously. Miss, look, there is a restaurant across the street. The apron on their table is made of this kind of cloth. They are processing it. The peddler pointed to a shop opposite, and Angelina and Yar also looked over. I saw that the shop opposite was clearing up the tablecloths, and they even packed the cloths directly, and the oily dishes on the table were directly sprinkled with oil. Then they directly poured the dishes into the sink, and the piece of cloth that Yar thought was a good cloth was casually thrown to a scrubber for him to wash. A very indifferent look. This way of treating the fine cloth directly turned Angelina and Yar into petrification. After carefully observing the pedestrians passing by, although the clothes on their bodies are simple, it seems that the cloth they use is much better than this. Angelina and Yar feel their worldview has been impacted. The nobles of other countries pursue high-quality cloth, but in the city of Ross, even some people despise it as a tablecloth. This is the strength of the current basic industrialization of the country of Ross. Anything can be mass-produced, and with a large output, even the best things are worthless. Miss, if you want, come and see this cloth. The peddler mysteriously took out a piece of silk and said, this is a high-quality satin developed using the latest weaving technology, and it is very cheap. It costs you 1 silver coin per foot. Angelina looked, and she touched the material and feel of this piece of satin. She opened her mouth wide. She could see the silk and satin used in the clothes of the royal family members of the Gutongxi Alliance Empire, and the quality of the two was not much different. Moreover, the special silk and satin used by members of the royal family of the Gutongxi Alliance Empire cost 100 gold coins per foot. Looking at the silk and satin in front of me, it is not much different from the former one. How much did the peddler ask for? 1 silver coin per foot. Oh my God. In the country of Ross, this kind of silk that can be compared with the silk and satin used by the royal family members of the Gutongxi Alliance Empire is so cheap. And looking at the price, it seems to be a bad street. Angelina felt that her outlook on life and the world had been turned upside down in just 2 days. Is this really just an ordinary small country of mortals? How do you feel that their standard of living is better than that of the royal family members of the Gutongxi Alliance Empire? Yuan. Who is Yuan? Suddenly at this time, a loud shout came from the sky in the distance. Angelina instantly felt that a huge wave of magic power was approaching in the distant sky. This magical power is like an unfathomable sea, as if it can swallow all the magical power that wants to explore his existence. Top Sky Mage. Angelina's face turned pale instantly. Just now her magic power tentatively touched the other party, but in an instant, her magic power was like a small boat sailing alone in the sea, and a wave was instantly swallowed by the sea. Absolutely the Top Sky Archmage. The Top Sky Mage who can break through to the Star Saint is just a step away. It is not at the same level as the Sky Mage who broke through the battle that Ji Yuan killed before. The difference between the two is like the difference between cloud and mud. Ji Yuan, you killed my 13 apprentices, get out. I want your life. The voice said that it spread to the whole city in a corrugated manner, making people unable to help but cover their ears. An old man with white beard and hair came galloping in the sky. He stood floating in the air, his robes were flying all over his body, his beard and hair stood on end, and his eyes were bloodshot. He's Leander. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 31 Catch Rockets. Spicy you can really cheat. 5/7. P.S. Chapter 5, there are 2 more chapters today. Readers, please cast your votes. The 7 updates every day are so awesome, vote for me, wah. There are enemies. Everyone in their positions. Countless soldiers on the city wall pointed to the sky with 98K in their hands. He's a magician, spread out. Don't get together. Rotis loudly commanded that all the soldiers were Leander aiming at the sky after finding cover in skirmish formation. Who is he? Ji Yuan stood above the fortress in Los Angeles, looking at Leander standing in the sky in the distance. Put the searchlight on his face. It's dark now, and his target is too small. Under the command of Ji Genichi, more than a dozen searchlights around him were turned on immediately, and more than a dozen bright lights shone on Leander's body in an instant. Leander was floating in the air, looking at the extremely bright and brightly lit city below. He was surprised for a while. Is this really Rose City? Instead of some magical city? Why is the entire Los Angeles city brighter than the capital of the Gutongxi Alliance Empire at night? Ji Yuan, get the hell out of here, and get all the magicians from the country of Ross to get out of here too. How dare you kill my 13 disciples? The old man promises that only you and those magicians will be killed, and the people of your Ross kingdom will not be moved. Leander growled in the air. A vengeance is coming. When did I kill his 13 disciples? Ji Genichi was stunned, puzzled. Your Majesty, have you forgotten that there were more than a dozen magicians in the Not Coalition army in the decisive battle on the Wally Plain a few days ago? A knight under his command reminded. Oh, since he's looking for revenge, we can't let him go. Ji Yuan's expression turned cold, and he waved his hand. Snipers are ready. Immediately, hundreds of knights in the castle aimed their 98K at Leander in the sky. Let all the recruits who are being trained be evacuated, and the veterans be on top. Although there are many recruits, they lack weapons and equipment and have no combat effectiveness. Prepare the bazooka too. Seeing his strength, I suspect that ordinary rifles can't hurt him. Yes. More than a dozen soldiers carried the bazooka rocket launchers that had just been manufactured in the past 2 days on their shoulders and waited for them. Leander's eyes were fixed, and he immediately spotted Angelina and Yar among the crowd on the street. 2 elven magicians. You should be the magicians of Ross Kingdom. The blood in his eyes flashed, and with a wave of his hands, 2 red, blood-colored fireballs appeared. With a movement of his finger, he slammed fiercely towards the street in an instant. Not good. Yar, open the magic shield. Angelina gritted her teeth and waved her hands. The green magic power spread, and the green magic shields with plant patterns on both sides unfolded with a bang and folded together. Boom, boom. 2 fireballs hit the magic shield and exploded instantly. The double-layer magic shield shattered. And the flames also splashed out, and many civilians screamed and were burned by the flames. Ah! The second girl let out a scream, and was shocked to fly out. Angelina fell to the ground, her white and tender hands trembling. It was too powerful, and the 2 fireballs thrown out casually broke through the magic shield that she and Yar put up with all their strength. Those who ride on horses attack our civilians. Ji Genichi cursed angrily, and cursed the earth swear words that he hadn't said for a long time. Sniper. With an order, the 98K rifles in the hands of hundreds of knights immediately opened fire. They had only one target, and that was the eyebrow of Leander in the sky. Leander sneered after throwing out 2 fireball bombs, just about to gather more magic, but the next moment he heard a dense sound in the castle. Bang 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 bang. Leander sensed the danger, and immediately opened a magic shield. Hundreds of bullets all hit the shield and were bounced off in an instant. Leander's eyes were fixed, and a crimson magic power spread out with quick eyes and quick hands. The bullets that bounced off in the air were immediately shrouded in magic power and gathered in front of him. These little things. Leander held a bullet in front of his eyes and observed it carefully. Is it made of copper? So that's it, it's just a small way. Leander laughed disdainfully. In his opinion, these things are nothing more than being stimulated with magic power, and then shot out to achieve the effect of killing. But if you want to achieve great power, you must spend a lot of magic power. Therefore, in Leander's view, that's all there is to it, even his shield can't be broken. Not worth mentioning. No, he is too powerful, it is impossible to beat him. Go and let Yuan escape. Angelina stood up from the ground in embarrassment, her dazzling blonde hair was covered with dust at the moment. She pulled Yar and said urgently, he is Leander, he just missed breaking through the existence of the Saint of Stars, you go and let Yuan escape. It can't be beaten, such a powerful and vast magic power, it is impossible to beat it. Yar looked at Angelina and was stunned. Why? Her Royal Highness would care so much about that villainous king. For some reason, Angelina felt extremely anxious at the moment, she didn't want Yuan to die. She has traveled to the mainland, and she has never seen a city like Ross City, where everyone lives and works in peace and contentment, and the common people are happy. This was created by Genichi. Angelina didn't want Yuan to die here like this. Call out. At this time, a long strip of objects suddenly flew in the sky. Flames spewed from the tail. There was incomparable contempt in Leander's eyes, and he said angrily, it's said that this kind of mortal artifact fired with magic power and killed purely by impact is impossible to hurt me. He felt that he was underestimated, and in anger, he grabbed the rocket that flew in front of him with one hand. There was a sneer on the corner of Yuan's mouth. Unlike ordinary rockets that explode when they hit hard enough objects, this is a high explosive bomb inspired by a fuse. If you dare to grasp this, you are really cheating. Chapter 32 Restless Heart, 6, 7/7, 2-in-1 chapter. P.S. This is a 2-in-1 chapter, with a total of more than 4,500 words. Today's update is over. I don't know if you like this chapter. I routinely ask for flowers and comments every day. Ask for all data. Go and let Yuan escape. Angelina tugged on Yar anxiously, but before she finished speaking, there was a loud noise in the sky. Boom. With a bang, a ball of fire exploded instantly. The air was filled with smoke, and a charred figure fell from the air. Angelina and Yar stared blankly at the figure falling from the sky. Your Highness, do you want to let that bully king escape? Yar asked blankly. No. No need. Angelina unconsciously let go of Yar's hand, staring blankly at the flames and smoke that hadn't dissipated in the sky. A top sky mage was knocked down from the sky like this. Ahem. Leander lay on the ground covered in scorched black, coughing out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, his whole body was scorched black, and the hair, eyebrows, and beard on his head were all burned away at this moment. From the beginning, an old man with a Santa Claus-style big white beard turned into a pitch-black marinated egg. What the hell is this? Leander spat blood from his mouth, lay on the ground and stared wide-eyed. I thought it was just a normal larger bullet, but I didn't expect why it would explode like a fireball. And judging by the power, it is much more powerful than the general fireball technique. Just at that moment, his defensive shield was blasted. It even seriously injured him. If he hadn't just realized something was wrong and opened the shield again at the moment of the explosion, otherwise he would have died on the spot. This country cannot stay. A group of mortals who have mastered such a weapon is a huge threat to the magicians of the entire continent. With such a weapon, ordinary mortals can easily kill a noble magician. They can't stay, and this country absolutely can't stay. Leander's body twisted on the ground in pain. More than 10 shrapnel were deeply trapped in his flesh and blood. He was already badly wounded, and if he was hit by another rocket, he would die. Because of his serious injury, the flow of magic power in his body was cut off, and now he has no energy left to cast magic. But, for the sake of all magicians on this continent, he must destroy this city. In his arms, there is a magic scroll drawn by a real star saint. A forbidden curse-level world-destroying magic is sealed inside, which can be activated with only a small amount of magic power. Once activated, there will be no grass left in the surrounding kilometer boundary. Now with his remaining magic power, he can barely activate the scroll of forbidden spells. I don't know how many such weapons they have. He must wait for the country's army to capture him and take him away, then find the best opportunity to launch it. He is a top sky mage and a high-level figure in the Gutongxi Alliance Empire. These people will definitely want to catch him. In this way, when he sees King Ji Yuan, he can take the opportunity to activate the scroll and annihilate Ji Yuan and the high-level people around him in one fell swoop. It is absolutely impossible for these mortals to have such a weapon to be allowed by the magicians of the whole continent, and he, Leander. For the sake of the noble magicians of the whole continent, he is willing to sacrifice his life and die together with all the high-level people in this country. Thinking of this, Leandel smiled painfully on the ground. If he could give up his old life and prevent a revolution that would change the world, he would be very willing. Hurry up, it's right in front. At this time, there was a loud shout, followed by the sound of dense footsteps. Hundreds of uniformed soldiers surrounded here with 98K. It's coming, play dead first, waiting for them to take me away. Leandel lay motionless on the ground. Call out. Call out. Call out. ... There were more than a dozen sounds of breaking through the air in an instant, and Leander realized something, and his eyes widened instantly. How dare they? He is the great master of the sky, and if he alone goes to the Gutongxi Empire to exchange for ransom, he can at least get millions of gold coins. Why didn't they take prisoners? Leandel, he hates it. He wanted to activate the scroll of forbidden curse on the spot, but his serious injury made it difficult for him to mobilize his magic power. The magic power is moving quickly. Be sure to activate the scroll of forbidden spells. Boom, 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 boom. A series of explosions sounded instantly on the ground. Flames splashed and smoke billowed. The ground was blasted into potholes one after another, and mud, sand and stones were splashed around. Cough cough. A pair of shiny black military boots stepped on the ground. Jiyu Genichi lowered the brim of his military cap with one hand, and waved his other hand on his nose to disperse the smoke. You're good too, let me kill you with a dozen rockets. Jiyu Yuan looked at the ground in the distance where there were no bones left, only a dozen or so potholes connected together, and felt that this magician was nothing more than that. Cough cough, cough cough. At this time, several crisp coughs sounded, and Jiyu Yuan turned his head to look, only to see Angelina running towards this side, pulling Yar. The two elf girls were slightly embarrassed, and their dazzling long golden hair also looked dull at the moment. The two of them ran over at a trot all the way, and Angelina saw Jiyu Yuan standing upright in a black military uniform at a glance. Are you okay? Angelina couldn't help blushing and asked. I'm the king, what could happen? Jiyu Yuan smiled, and he moved closer to Angelina. You villainous king who can only bully people, what do you want to do to his highness? Yar stood in front of Angelina angrily, and said fiercely. The villainous king, I didn't do anything to you, why is your tone so ugly? Jiyu Yuan was a little puzzled when he heard this name. HMPH, we are noble elves, you actually asked us to farm. Yar glanced at it with a small mouth, still brooding over the fact that Jiyu Yuan asked the two of them to farm. Where's the hat I gave you? Jiyu Yuan looked at Angelina. Angelina blushed and said nothing. That kind of thing has long been lost. But Yar spoke fiercely. In fact, it was not lost, and it was well kept in the carriage when they came. Okay, a maid should look like a maid. If my maid was like you, she would have been spanked countless times. Jiyu Yuan stretched out his hand and pulled Yar away. He stood in front of Angelina and lowered his head to look at Angelina's delicate and pretty face. And Angelina couldn't help closing her eyes, her heart beating rapidly. What did he want to do? Do you want to kiss me? What to do? What to do? What to do? Should I run away? Cruel Yar. Hey, say it again. Whose A are you going to spank? Why don't I want to hide? Why? Worse Yar. You villainous king, what do you want to do? Stay away from my highness. Angelina held her small hands together nervously, waiting for Ji Yuan's next move. The next moment, Angelina clearly felt a hat put on her head again. Angelina couldn't help shrinking her neck, and opened one eye in doubt. What was reflected in the golden eyes was Ji Yuan's face, which was more handsome than most elf men. I'll give you another one, don't lose it next time. Covering Angelina's small head with a hat that was obviously one size bigger, Angelina just opened one eye and closed the other eye, dazedly on the spot, with an obvious hat on her head. A pitch-black military cap one size too big. Ji Yuan left, he didn't kiss me. While Angelina breathed a sigh of relief, she covered her heart with her hands. My heart beats uneasy. Why did my heart beat so hard just now? Why? I would be a little disappointed that he didn't kiss me. After a while, the restlessness in my heart gradually subsided. Holding the large military cap on her head with both hands, feeling the texture of the large-brimmed military cap, Angelina couldn't help but smile. He actually said that he wanted to spank his A. Such vulgar words, he is simply not a gentleman, nor does he look like a nobleman. How can there be such a rogue king, HMPH? On the other hand, Yar was still chirping, looking very angry at Ji Yuan. She and Angelina also came from a big elf tribe, and the central territory was already prosperous. Even their elf tribe is equivalent to a country, occupying several large cities. Their identities are considered very noble, and although Yar is a maid, her relationship with Angelina is that of sisters, so Yar also has her own little arrogance. Your Majesty, that elf maid just now was disrespectful to you. Do you want to teach her a lesson? Rhodes came to Ji Yuan and said. No, I think the two of them are quite cute, and sometimes the king can be more approachable. There was a smile on the corner of Ji Yuan's mouth. And he had seen it on the castle before. Angelina and Yar worked together to prop up the protective shield, not only protecting themselves but also protecting most of the surrounding people. Although some people were still injured, the two of them could just protect themselves, so nothing would happen to them. But they didn't do this, but tried to protect the people around them as much as possible while protecting themselves. If you have a kind heart, you will not overestimate your own strength and focus on serving the people and taking care of yourself. You are not stupid. It was the elf maid who was chattering, and when I had time, I actually taught her what the rules were. What are the rules? Ji Yuan is the rule. But now, Ji Yuan doesn't care about her for the time being because she also protects the people of Lost Country. Ah, Your Majesty. This subordinate understands. Rhodes suddenly realized when he heard Ji Yuan's words. Ji Yuan didn't know if he misunderstood something, but he didn't want to worry about it. Soon, they came to the street with the most injured people. There are 7 or 8 injured people here, all of whom suffered flame burns to varying degrees. Angelina and Yar also tried their best to protect these ordinary people while protecting themselves, but their strength was limited after all, and it was inevitable that someone would be injured. Fortunately, no one died. But this matter is also thanks to Angelina and Yar. His Majesty. Your Majesty has come to see us. Some injured people were being treated by military doctors. They were lying on stretchers. Among them were people who had seen Ji Yuan during the duty-free time in the square. He cried out excitedly. Your Majesty. It's really Your Majesty. Immediately, all the people around shouted at Ji Yuan with joy, and they all wanted to kneel down to salute, but Ji Yuan stretched out his hand to stop them, and he said, in the future, we will not be in the mood to kneel and salute in the country of loss, so just bow and salute in the future. Gone. Thank you, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, Yuan. The civilians looked very excited. His Majesty. Seeing Ji Yuan come to see them, an injured citizen covered in bandages was lying on a stretcher with tears in his eyes, and even wanted to get up to salute at one point. But Ji Yuan personally stopped him, and he blamed himself. This matter is my king's negligence, allowing the enemy to infiltrate. Your Majesty, don't say that, it's not your fault. The wounded man was really moved and cried. He raised his bandaged hand and said, "As a noble king, you can still miss ordinary people like us. The grass people are really excited. Heal your wounds with peace of mind. Your medical expenses will be paid by the state. After all, you were injured by the enemy. If you become disabled, the state will support you, so you can recuperate with peace of mind." Yuan gently pressed the wounded man's hand that he wanted to raise, and said. The onlookers around were moved to tears. "Behold, this is their great king. He is really a kind, approachable and caring person. Ordinary people don't have much culture, and those who praise them can only say a few words. But their love and reverence for Yuan comes from the heart." Ding, popularity value plus 15,000. Unexpectedly, there were unexpected gains. Yuan was overjoyed. Among the crowd of onlookers, Angelina stared at the downtrodden and approachable His Majesty the King with some bewilderment. "Oh, Your Highness." Yar shook Angelina vigorously. "Ah, what's wrong, Yar?" Angelina was taken aback when she recovered. "What's wrong with you, Your Highness? You've been staring at that robed king in a daze. It's only been a few days. Are you fascinated by him?" Yar said angrily. "Ah." Hearing this, Angelina's face suddenly turned red, and she quickly stammered to retort. No, Yar, don't talk nonsense, why, how could?" She kept asking herself repeatedly in her heart, what's wrong with her, did she really like this man whom she had only known for a few days? Yar next to her was looking at His Majesty the King, who was looking for the wounded and caring about ordinary people. She glanced at her mouth and whispered to BB, "I didn't expect this robed king to have such a good side. It's just that the sound is getting smaller and smaller. After a few days. After eliminating Leander, it is certain that the news will not leak out, and it will take at least several months for the Duke of Golden Lion to react, so Yuan began to prepare for the next move. All the main force of the Nord Kingdom has been wiped out, and the Lot Kingdom has also been crippled. Except that it is resisting the Orc Empire, and Kizi Kingdom, which has always been friendly with him, has no reason to attack for the time being. The other two countries, Yuan, can all swallow. The recruits have been training for a period of time, and the next step is to swallow them all, which basically has no army in the Nord Kingdom. Expand your territory. Chapter 33. Prepare to annex the Nord Kingdom. Ask for flowers, ask for tickets. P.S. Today's first update, the author has something to do today, so I have to go out, and I don't know when it will be when I come back, so today's 7th update probably can't be completed. The author here apologizes to all readers. 2 months have passed, and the training of recruits is almost done. Raising guns, shooting, queuing, and 2 months of training are more than enough. Now Yuan's army has officially expanded to more than 12,000 people. Organized into a division, a total of 6 regiments. Yuan personally served as the division commander and initially awarded himself the rank of Major General. In the past 2 months, thanks to the great help of system craftsmen, the car has been researched and initially mass-produced. At this time, Yuan also clearly realized the disadvantage of underpopulation. Arsenals, textile mills, steel mills. The outskirts of Rose City are full of factories, and now most of the population of Rose Country has moved to Rose City. Most of the people in Rose City, which has reached a population of 450,000, work in factories. It is precisely because everyone has been mobilized that Yuan's productivity can keep up. And this also made Yuan feel inadequate. The population is still too small. That being the case, it is necessary to swallow the Nord Kingdom. The Nord Kingdom has a population of 3 million, which is 6 times that of its own Ross Kingdom. In the past 2 months, the production of military trucks has only reached 200. However, this truck is a newly designed truck, which is different from the previous life, and it can still seat 30 people in a slightly spacious situation. That is, a row. In other words, it can transport up to 6,000 people at a time. But Yuan did not need 6,000 people to invade the Nord Kingdom. Yuan plans to transport the troops of the 2 regiments to the Nord Kingdom first, and other vehicles to transport some weapons, equipment, supplies, ammunition, and so on. But at this time, Ji Yuan met some old friends. Your Majesty, Yuan. Ha 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 ha, Your Majesty. In the living room of Lost City. The 7 businessmen saluted with a smile in front of Ji Yuan. Everyone, I haven't seen you for a while, and you've gained a lot of weight. Ji Yuan sat on the sofa with his legs crossed, looking at the 7 businessmen in front of him. Compared with 2.5 months ago, their complexion is obviously very good. During this time, I've made a lot of money. Hey, look at what you said, Your Majesty, isn't it all thanks to Your Majesty's blessing that we can make money? The fat bearded businessman quickly waved his hand and said fawningly. Yes, yes, it is all because of you, Your Majesty, that we are where we are today. The other businessmen chimed in. At this time, Lena came in with a silver tray, on which was a cup of hot black tea. Okay, don't talk about flattering, you come to see me today, just talk about anything. Ji Yuan casually picked up the cup of black tea, reached out and touched Lena's little furry head. Lena's silver eyes were closed with great enjoyment, and a small tail flicked back and forth. Your Majesty, we are here to send you money today. The fat bearded businessman said quickly. Hey, we want to increase our business, but the quantity is insufficient, so we want to buy a large quantity from you. The fat bearded businessman rubbed his palms and said with a smile. How much do you want? Ji Yuan took a sip of black tea and asked casually. 12 million. The fat bearded businessman smiled and said a number. $12 million, the 7 of you have at least doubled your net worth in the past 2 months. You have made a lot of money. Ji Yuan put down the black tea in his hand and smiled. Look at what you said, isn't it all thanks to you? The 7 businessmen broke out in cold sweat when they heard this, and they spoke tremblingly. They still remember the businessman who died in the conference room with his forehead blooming. No one reacted, the forehead opened in an instant, brains, blood, splashed all over the floor, and Ji Yuan's unchanging expression, even wanting to smile, still impresses them deeply. None of them wanted to end up like that. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. The more they saw outside, the more they realized how terrifying Ji Yuan was. Electric lights are not magic creations, and they can't even know their principle. The only thing they know is that Ji Yuan can easily manufacture this kind of thing in large quantities, and its hidden strength is unfathomable. Okay, 12 million goods, I agree, pay half of the payment first, pick up the goods in 10 days, and then pay the other half. Ji Yuan nodded. Well, Your Majesty, we would like to ask you to see something. The 7 businessmen looked at each other and said to Ji Yuan. What? Ji Yuan asked. It is this. The fat bearded businessman beckoned, and a servant came in. He was holding a box in his hand. The box was opened and contained a blue crystal ball. What's this? There was curiosity in Ji Yuan's eyes. Return to Your Majesty, this is the magic ball of knowledge. The magic creation from the central region can copy more than 80% of a person's knowledge and pass it on to another person. The only side effect is that the knowledge level of the person whose knowledge is transferred will never be able to improve. The fat bearded businessman introduced. There is such a thing. Ji Yuan was overjoyed, he absolutely needed this thing. With this thing, he can mass produce some high-tech talents. What it meant to him, the results speak for themselves. As for the fact that the knowledge level of the people to be transferred cannot be improved by an inch, it is simple. First, get a group of people with medium and high-tech levels to serve as the mainstay of domestic scientific and technological talents. At the same time, schools will be opened in China, so that after 5 or 6 years, the students will be able to replace those who use the magic ball of knowledge. During this period of time, the knowledge magic ball can definitely make up for the shortage of domestic talents to the greatest extent. Very good. How much does this one cost? Ji Yuan asked directly. Obviously he didn't think that these businessmen would give him money directly, that's not realistic at all. 1,500 gold coins, but Your Majesty, you can exchange goods for it. We will suffer a little loss. 1 knowledge magic ball can be exchanged for 12 electric lamps. Those merchants were overjoyed. By the way, where did you get these magic balls of knowledge? Ji Yuan asked. Your Majesty, to tell you the truth, this is a magician friend I met in Zhongyu. He is not very skilled in magic, but he has a lot of experience in magic creation. This knowledge magic ball was invented by him, but he is not affected by other people. The magician attaches great importance to him, even excludes him, because other magicians think he is killing the future of the magician, so he is living a very miserable life now, and as his friend, I naturally want to help him. Said the fat businessman. The magic ball of knowledge is definitely a good thing for Gu Yuan, but not necessarily for a magician. They are magicians, who strive for excellence all their lives and practice magic in order to achieve the divine way. If they use the orb of knowledge, their knowledge of magic is forever frozen in that moment. And if the knowledge of magic does not improve, how can the realm improve accordingly? Therefore, for the vast majority of magicians, the magic ball of knowledge is something they cannot accept anyway, because for them, the magic ball of knowledge is tantamount to killing their own future and cutting off their divine way. Hearing the fat businessman's explanation, Gu Yuan had a plan in mind, and he said, if possible, next time you visit him, say hello to him for me, and you will take my certificate to the treasury to find Stephen later. STI, 100,000 gold coins, give it to the magician who made the magic ball of knowledge for me. You magicians don't want to see such a good talent, so I, Gu Yuan, want it. Chapter 34 Invasion of the Nord Kingdom 1/7. P.S. I drank too much last night, so I fell asleep directly. I woke up in the afternoon, and now I am updating. This is the first update today, and there are 6 more updates today. After sending off the 7 businessmen, Gu Yuan heard footsteps. Footsteps appear light and crisp. Yar, what do you want to do? Gu Yuan stretched out his hand and rubbed his temple, said helplessly. Are you going to send troops? Yar pulled Angelina and stood in front of Gu Yuan. On Angelina's small head at this moment, she still wears the military cap with a large brim that is 1 size larger and can cover her head. Lena, who was standing next to Gu Yuan, saw the 2 daughters, Yar and Angelina, and her wagging tail immediately stood up. The silver eyes were full of vigilance to look at the second daughter, and at the same time, she moved a little closer to Genichi Koro without even knowing it. Yes. Gu Yuan nodded. Then we will go together. Yar said openly that she has been planting the land for 2 months, and she really doesn't want to do it anymore. It's no child's play to raise troops and fight wars. Gu Yuan sighed. HMPH, Your Highness and I have been traveling the mainland for 50 years, what scene haven't we seen? Yar glanced at her mouth and muttered. Okay, since you asked, then so be it, you should be civil servants, and be secretaries by my side. Gu Yuan waved his hand and asked a maid to take Yar and Angelina down to measure their size so that they could tailor their military uniforms. In Gu Yuan's army, all officers' uniforms are basically tailor-made. Yeah, I can join the army. Yar seemed very excited, but Angelina obviously had a different focus from Yar. Stay by his side, what is he implying? Angelina stood there with her head down, thinking wildly for a while. One of the 2 daughters, Yar and Angelina, was excited and the other left shyly. After the 2 elf girls left, Gu Yuan looked at Lena next to him, and noticed that the furry animal ears on her head were drooping listlessly. Gu Yuan smiled slightly, and asked, what do you want to say? You can say it now. Owner. Lena called out very softly. It's okay, let's talk. Gu Yuan stroked Lena's hairy head. Lena thought, only Lena could serve the master. With Gu Yuan's permission, Lena dared to mutter in a low voice. But there was a hint of jealousy in those words. Lena, the army is a very dangerous place. The reason why they can join the army as my secretary is because they know magic and have enough ability to protect themselves. You are not like Lena, the army is too dangerous for you. Gu Yuan explained slowly. The master, Lena wants to learn how to shoot a gun. Lena summoned up her courage and said to Gu Yuan. The big silver eyes looked at Gu Yuan expectantly. Gu Yuan nodded, yes. Very good. Lena threw herself into Gu Yuan's arms happily. Gu Yuan thought that Lena would get up soon, but unexpectedly, Lena buried her head deeply in Gu Yuan's chest, but there was no movement. The pair of animal ears on the head trembled slightly, as if the trembling went directly from the head to the base of the tail. Lena, what's wrong with you? Ji Yuan found something wrong. Lena was in Ji Yuan's arms, a small heart was beating rapidly, she only felt that something was secreting rapidly in her body, which made her head hot and her face flushed. Owner. Lena raised her head, revealing her blushing little face and those silver eyes full of confusion. This is, the facking period. Ji Yuan was dumbfounded. Animals have a fading period, and half-orcs are the same. The first spring after adulthood is the facking period of half-orcs. Lena is 15 years old this year, and calculated according to the age of a half-orc, she happens to be an adult. Lena didn't know what was wrong with her, but she just felt that her body was so hot and uncomfortable. As for Ji Yuan in front of her, as a man, she is also the one she likes in her heart, so Lena only feels that the body of Ji Yuan now exudes a sense of attraction to her. Ji Yuan's black eyes were fixed, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Lena has grown up too, it's time to understand something. The other maids took the initiative to leave the room, pulled down the curtain, closed the door and retreated. Only the two of them were left in the room, and the debauched voice could be heard endlessly for a while. In the Kingdom of Nord, a city near the border of the Kingdom of Los. Several nobles are discussing something together. It has been 2 months since His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness set off without any news. There is no news of the army going out. I'm afraid. A Nord noble said with an ugly face. The Kingdom of Naros is so weak, what method did it use to defeat His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness the Prince? A nobleman punched the table, he was angry and puzzled. I'm afraid the next goal of the Kingdom of Ros is to directly invade us. Invade us. I heard that this time all the towns and cities in the Kingdom of Ros have fallen except for the capital city of Ros. Going out again after repeated battles will not only waste people and money, but also exhaust the troops. Don't they rest for a while? A nobleman was taken aback, and his voice became louder unconsciously. Now our country is empty, and the soldiers are basically taken away by His Royal Highness. The country is extremely empty. I am afraid that King Ross will not let go of such a good opportunity to invade. Your Majesty the King, Your Highness the Prince, the 12 Lord Magicians, and even Lord Leander all entered the territory of Ross 2 months ago, but so far no news has come. The nobleman who spoke at the beginning was full of palpitations in his tone. Everyone present understood what he meant. Involuntarily, they all had a trace of fear in their hearts towards the country of Los, which seemed to have suddenly become very strange. How could this happen? Last year they crossed the border to plunder the border of Ross country without incident, but why did Los country suddenly become like this year? It seems that anyone who invades will be swallowed up, making people fearful like facing an abyss. Come on, let them come. A nobleman suddenly picked up a glass of wine from the table and poured it down, he roared angrily. I want to see how terrifying the army of Ross is. The nobleman roared angrily, but the eyes of the other noblemen were all erratic, each of them had small calculations and other plans in their hearts. Boom! A loud noise sounded outside, shaking the beams of the house, and all the nobles trembled in their hearts. What's going on? Chapter 35 Push all the way. The Fallen Kingdom of Nord. 2/7. P.S. The second update today, and the 5th update. What sound? What happened? For a moment, the nobles in the room were all panicked. Frame. The door was knocked open, and a disheveled armored knight barged in. He shouted in panic, Rose people, the army of the Kingdom of Rose is attacking the city. What? How is this possible? How could they come so fast? All the nobles shouted in panic. Everyone. The Ross people have nothing to fear, we will definitely be able to defend this city. The combined strength of the few of us is still thousands of people. They are not many Luosi troops, and 1,000 people are enough to defend the city. The alcoholic nobleman stood up and spoke loudly. It's not good. It's not good, my lord. Serf, serf. At this time, a soldier rushed in a panic, and he shouted loudly, the serf opened the city gate, and now the Luosi army has entered the city. What? Those damned untouchables. Guys, let's quickly organize an army to carry out urban street fighting, and we will definitely hold on. The alcoholic nobleman roared, and immediately turned around and said to the other nobleman behind him. Shua. A sword light flashed. The alcoholic nobleman covered his neck, and the blood couldn't stop flowing down. He looked in disbelief at a young noble who drew his sword in front of him, fell to the ground and died. The Rossi people have already entered the city. Both His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness have died in the previous battlefield. It is impossible for us to resist the Rossi people. If someone surrenders with me now, we'll both be alive. After finishing speaking, the young nobleman dropped the bloody sword in his hand and went out to meet Ross's army. At the city gate, teams of soldiers from the Kingdom of Ross lined up neatly and entered the city with 98K on their shoulders. Looking around, you can see the very neat and clean steel helmet. Countless people on both sides of the street hid in their homes with fear or excitement and watched the strange army outside through the windows. The first to greet the army was a group of serfs who were the most oppressed. Beside the serfs, there is a group of nobles who are very well dressed. They are all the lords of the surrounding cities and villages, and they gathered here to discuss how to deal with Ross's army. But now that Loth's army came, they put on a full smile to welcome their enemies. The serfs looked at the nobles who greeted the Loth army with a hateful look. At this time, a military vehicle drove over, and a captain officer with a large-brimmed military cap, black long military boots, an armed belt around his waist, and a black military overcoat got out of the vehicle. Grown-ups. The group of nobles greeted them with smiles on their faces. And the captain officer glanced at them casually, full of disdain in his eyes. The third platoon leader, your platoon is stationed in this city, and the rest of you will take a break and move on. Yes. The captain officer made some arrangements and continued to get in the car and leave without even talking to the nobles. In this arrangement by Gu Yuan, the two regiments attacked the cities of the Nord Kingdom in units of battalions. The Kingdom of Nord has 4 cities and nearly 100 small towns. A battalion has 500 men. The 4 battalions of the 1st Regiment were responsible for attacking 4 towns, and the 20 companies of the 2nd Regiment were responsible for those towns respectively. The attack of Ross' army was exceptionally smooth. There was basically no decent resistance encountered along the way, and the enemy surrendered. This is also thanks to the fight 2 months ago. During the defense of Ross City and the annihilation battle of Wally Plain 2 months ago, the Ross army wiped out most of the nobles and their troops in the Nord Kingdom. The army battles of this era are generally called by the king, and then the nobles under him lead their troops to join the king's team and fight. Therefore, in the previous 2 battles, 80% of the Nord Kingdom's vitality and nobles had been wiped out, and there were only 2 or 3 small fish and shrimp left in the Nord Kingdom. No decent resistance could be organized at all. Moreover, Gu Yuan's decree to abolish the nobility in Ross has already been spread, and the Ross army will not disturb the people, kill, or plunder after entering the city of Nord, which is in stark contrast to the army of this era. Therefore, most of the serfs and civilians in the Nord Kingdom believed that the Ross army was here to liberate them, and they basically welcomed them along the way. This is the case in this era. Most nobles will exploit civilians, oppress serfs, and earn money. This kind of phenomenon is very serious. So the Luosi army pushed all the way, encountered towns along the way, civilians and serfs came to open the city gates, the army entered the city, left a platoon stationed, and continued to move forward. Less than a week, almost all cities and towns in the Nord Kingdom fell and were occupied by the Kingdom of Ross. Only the capital of the Nord Kingdom, Tino City, remained. A regiment of Rossi troops has been stationed outside Tino City for a day. Adjutant Tom is dressed in a dark military uniform. He holds a telescope in his hand and looks towards the top of the city. Patrols are very strict. Haven't they surrendered yet? At this time, Rotis, the commander of the regiment with the rank of major, came over. No, they are completely different from the defenders we encountered before. We sent people to the city to persuade them to surrender twice, but they were all driven back by their arrows. Tom gave a military salute and shook his head. After all, it is the capital of the Nord Kingdom. It is said that the defenders are well-known veterans of the Nord Kingdom. They are very good at defensive battles. Let us try to persuade you to surrender again. If you still do not surrender, then bombard the city. You must take this city within an hour. Quote, the order His Majesty gave us is to take down all the Nord cities within a week, and now is the last day. Rotis nodded, he said. Yes. Tom gave a military salute and responded. In Tino City, in the military hall, a burly white-haired old man in armor sat at the head with a serious face. And there are more than 10 knights beside him. Once upon a time, there were thousands of knights in the Nord Kingdom, but now there are only a dozen or so around the old man. This veteran is named Yadman. Is a typical Nord, stubborn, rigid. He is also the most loyal general to the Nord Kingdom. General, it is impossible for us to beat the losers, so surrender. Kneeling below were 3 captured deserters, begging bitterly. Chapter 36 I think I can win. 3/7. P.S. The 3rd update, and the 4th update, Wawa, vote hard. General. A knight beside him looked at the 3 deserters kneeling below him. He thought of the Ross army still outside the city, and his scalp tingled for a while. Too fast. Normally, it would take 2 weeks to walk through the entire territory of the Nord Kingdom, but now, in less than a week, all towns and cities in Nord, except the capital, fell. Are all the people of Ross all great knights and magicians? The dozen or so knights present felt very puzzled and terrified. How could they possibly defeat such a loose army? Needless to say, all deserters will be executed. A stern light flashed in Yatiman's tiger eyes. The old man has led the army for decades, and has failed many times. Now the Nord Kingdom is at a critical juncture. Someone must turn the tide and save the Nord Kingdom. There are 5,000 defenders in the city, and only 2,000 enemies. How can we not defend the city? Yatiman reprimanded the surrounding knights loudly. His words are full of confidence in his own abilities. Yatiman is over 60 years old this year, and he has led the army for decades. Naturally, he has plenty of experience, and he also has the qualifications to be confident. Not to mention 2,000 people, even with 20,000 troops, Yatiman can hold the city wall, and may even turn defeat into victory. He has this ability and this confidence. But today's war has already surpassed Yatiman's cognition. General, we can't win. General. The 3 deserters screamed frantically and were dragged down. And Yatiman stared with tiger eyes. He doesn't believe it. He really didn't believe that he couldn't defend the city wall. Not everyone in the army of Ross is a great knight, nor is everyone a magician. How could a 5,000-man defense force lose to a 2,000-man siege force? Therefore, not only did Yatiman not believe that he could not defend the city wall, but he even felt that his troops were superior, and he could also look for opportunities to counterattack and completely defeat the 2,000 attacking Ross army. Outside the city, after another unsuccessful persuasion to capitulate, Rodi's eyes became icy cold. His Majesty the King, Yuan, gave him an order to take the entire Nord Kingdom within a week. Now is the last day, and only the last city remains. I can't procrastinate any longer, I must perfectly complete the orders issued by His Majesty. Artillery Battalion. Lotus looked at the 10-meter-high wall of Tino City in the distance, and gave an order. 120 mm PM38 mortars are used as artillery support at the platoon level, 1 for each platoon. And each regiment set up a separate artillery battalion. More than 60,000 120 mm PM38 mortars were arranged in formation, and the muzzles pointed at Tino City. North, switch defenses. The 2 groups of patrols on the ramparts are handing over. One of the squad leaders squinted at the Ross army camp in the distance on the city wall. Unconsciously, he sneered, 2,000 troops. No matter how powerful the Luosi people are, it is impossible to break through our city wall of 5,000 people with an army of 2,000 people. Captain North's tone was full of disdain. He was an arrogant Nord who looked down on everyone in other surrounding countries. Among the current city wall guards, except for some Nord soldiers who learned about the previous battle through various channels and feared the Ross army, most of the Nord soldiers, like General Yatiman, believed that it was impossible for the Ross people to break through their 5,000-man guarded city wall. After all, 5,000 is against 2,000, and it is still defending the city. People who can't do arithmetic should know the difference. General Yatiman is a very great general, the military god of our Nord Kingdom. He will definitely lead us too. The tone of the other team leader was full of admiration for Yatiman, but before he finished speaking, a scream in the sky attracted their attention. Call out. What sound? The soldiers on the city wall looked up at the sky suspiciously. Nothing. Where is the sound coming from? All the soldiers guarding the city were very puzzled. North sneered, and said, It is estimated that those cowardly Luosi people made some noise again, and actually set up the camp 3 kilometers away from the city wall. Boom! A loud noise exploded from the top of the city, completely interrupting his words. Ah! A burst of flames splattered, the entire city wall shook, and gravel splashed everywhere. The screams of several Nord soldiers rang out in an instant, and then ended in an instant. What it is? A shrill cry sounded, but this was only the beginning. Countless explosions, flames erupted at the top of the city, under the city wall, inside the city wall, and even in the city. Countless black smoke and screams appeared. North was so shaken on the city wall that he couldn't stand at all. There were countless flames around him, and the deafening explosions also made his ears ringing. He looked around in a daze and screamed, becoming a companion of the fragments. The next moment, an explosion sounded around him, and he was instantly thrown into the air. After he fell to the ground, his legs had already turned into pieces and scattered all over the ground. A shrill scream came from his throat. An eagle soared in the sky, and inside and outside the city wall below, countless flames exploded everywhere, filled with black smoke, and the Nord soldiers were torn apart like ants in an instant. What happened? What happened? Yatiman roared and led more than 10 knights out of the military hall. General! Wall! Wall! A knight pointed in shock at the tall city wall not far away. I saw that section of the city wall finally couldn't bear the pressure, and collapsed with the last explosion. Countless Nord soldiers were crushed to death, gravel was scattered, and smoke and dust were lingering. The city wall has collapsed. This section of the city wall collapsed, and the belief in Yatiman's heart seemed to collapse instantly along with the city wall. Chapter 37 Only 10 enemies. 4/7. P.S. The 4th update today, and 3 more updates. P.S. Thanks for the reward. Thanks for voting for the monthly ticket. Thanks. Boom. A loud noise exploded not far from Yatiman. A gust of wind and waves hit Yatiman's body in an instant, and Yatiman and several surrounding knights were blown away by the blast generated by the explosion. He fell to the ground, and the armor that hit Yatiman's body with gravel was bounced off again. Yatiman only felt his ears buzzing, and his brain became chaotic. The explosion dissipated, and the smoke was lingering. Yatiman staggered up from the ground, stabilized his body, and opened his eyes to look at the place of explosion. While the ears were buzzing, one could only see a broken depression on the ground, and there were pieces of flesh and armor everywhere in the depression. And one knight was lucky enough not to die, but he was lying on the ground and struggling constantly. Several other knights rushed to pull the knight, but after such a pull, only half of his body was pulled out. Only half of the body shrouded in the armor remained, while the lower half was completely missing, with flesh and internal organs scattered all over the floor. Ah! Yatiman's head was dazed and his body was shaking, staring blankly at the knight who was still screaming and struggling on the ground with only half of his body left. After a while, the tinnitus passed, and countless screams sounded around him, filling his ears. What the hell is this? Yatiman uttered a mournful cry. Around him, the fragmented corpses of soldiers fell on the ground, and there were countless howling soldiers who were lucky enough to survive lying on the ground. The house collapsed in an instant, with flames, explosions, and black smoke everywhere. In such an instant, Yatiman's self-confidence accumulated over decades collapsed. Who the hell is he making an enemy of? Stop shelling, attack. Outside the city, 2,000 Luoth soldiers began to attack under the order of Rotis. Stopped. Yatiman did not hear those loud noises, nor did he see the flames, so he forcibly calmed down under such circumstances. Start thinking about how you can hold on. Although he knew that this possibility was very slim. Yatiman is worthy of being the Nord's military god. It didn't take long for him to stop the Nord soldiers who were already showing signs of defeat and let them guard the gap in the city wall. Hundreds of surviving Nord soldiers had red eyes, and the bows and arrows in their hands aimed at the gap in the city wall. The tragic death of their companions and the screams of pain made them hate the upcoming Ross to the extreme. They swore in their hearts that if any Roth soldier appeared in the gap in the city wall, the bows and arrows in their hands would shoot the enemy into hedgehogs. At the gap in the city wall, hundreds of Nord soldiers waited with red eyes for the appearance of Ross soldiers. The next moment, a head with a steel helmet poked out from the gap. Shish! Dozens of arrows shot out instantly. The Ross soldier hurriedly poked his head back, patted his comrade in arms next to him, and pointed to the gap. The Ross soldier's face under the steel helmet was covered with a cold black iron face, and he couldn't see any expression. He nodded, and then picked up the MG-42 general-purpose machine gun in his hand with the bracket removed. At the gap in the city wall, hundreds of red-eyed Nord soldiers waited for the Ross soldiers to appear again, but the next moment, a gun barrel protruded out. A Loth soldier set up a machine gun, and another soldier dragged an ammunition chain in his hand. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chug chug chug. The bullet chain moved rapidly, and the shell casing was thrown into the air and fell on the ruins of the city wall with a crackling sound. Wanton shooting. The MG-42 general-purpose machine gun made a piercing gunshot like tearing cloth, and the muzzle of the gun spewed out flames. Dozens of bullets burst out in an instant, easily tore the armor of the Nord soldiers, and penetrated the bodies of the first row of Nord soldiers. Ah, what is this? Devils. Losers are all demons. The screams sounded instantly, and the Nord soldiers in the back row turned and ran away in extreme fear. But they can't outrun the bullet. Soon, the machine gun stopped roaring, and as far as the eye could see, there were corpses everywhere. A round of strafing instantly wiped out the Nord soldiers. After clearing the obstacles, the black boots of the Ross soldiers stepped into the gap, and they rushed into the city with 98K with bayonets in their hands. On the main street in the depths of the city, Yatiman is leading some soldiers in the city who have not been affected by the shelling to stand ready. Behind them is the Nord Palace. In front were 200 elite gun shield soldiers holding a large shield as tall as a person and a 3-meter-long spear in their left hand. In the middle are 500 sword and shield soldiers, and 300 archers are located in the rear. This is the last 1,000 undefeated soldiers in Tino City. The rest of the soldiers were either frightened mad by the shelling, or were scared out of their wits, and all fled in defeat. Yatiman opened his eyes wide and glared at the street over there. This is his last force. If you don't succeed, you will be benevolent. Yatiman already has the determination to fight to the death. The losers have appeared. Suddenly there was a roar ahead. Archer. Yatiman growled. The archers at the rear immediately bent their bows and set their arrows, ready to throw. The 300 spear and shield soldiers were waiting in full battle, looking at the dozen or so Ross soldiers who appeared at the opposite street corner. Damn, we seem to be separated from the main force. This is a squad of Ross soldiers. The squad leader scratched the back of his head, looking around with an iron face under the helmet, and soon they found the Nord soldiers in the front line. Shish. A rain of arrows fell from the sky in an instant. Evade. Find cover. The sergeant squad leader immediately roared. Immediately, the 10 Ross soldiers found their own bunkers extremely quickly. Well, a Ross soldier clutched his arm and let out a muffled grunt. His arm was accidentally exposed and he was shot with an arrow. After the rain of arrows. Hit me. Machine gunner, set up your special machine gun for me. There are so many people on the other side, and it looks like there is an old man. He can't be Yatiman. Mother, we are going to make meritorious service today. The squad leader smiled and waved. Soon a MG-42 general-purpose machine gun was erected on the ground. There are 10 of them, but there are still 1,000 people on the opposite side. Several Lowe's soldiers hold 98 kiloseconds behind cover. Boom, boom, boom. After a burst of shooting, several of the spear and shield soldiers in front fell down. But the other spear and shield soldiers were in a commotion, and some even wanted to retreat and run away. Because the large shield, which was as tall as a person, did not bring them the slightest protection. Can still be penetrated by bullets. Hold on, there are only 10 of them. At this time, Yatiman saw the enemy clearly. There were only 10 of them, and he couldn't help being furious. Facing only 10 enemies, his 1,000 elite soldiers began to riot. Press them all. There are only 10 of them, kill them. Yatiman was angry from his heart, and could no longer maintain his rationality. He swung the long sword in his hand and roared. Come on. The MG-42 in the hands of the machine gunners aimed at them. Chapter 38 For Your Majesty, go forward. 5/7. P.S. Today is the 5th update, and there are 2 more updates. Go ahead. With an order, the 300 forward spear and shield soldiers began to advance. Heavy gunner. Shoot. The machine gunner lying on the ground slammed the trigger of the MG-42 general-purpose machine gun. Chug chug chug. Gunshots sounded like cloth being torn, bullet casings were thrown out one by one, and the bullet chain moved rapidly. And the firepower sprayed out in an instant is extremely terrifying. The spear and shield soldiers on the opposite side fell in response, and fell to the ground in an instant like harvested wheat. Their large shields, armor, did not play any protective role. The powerful penetrating power of the bullet instantly tore their flesh and blood, leaving a blood hole in their body. Rows of Nord soldiers fell to the ground screaming and dying. Demons. These losers are demons. They must be using demonic magic. Ah! Run away. In a moment, these troops suffered more than 100 casualties. And their remaining soldiers immediately began to rout. The formation was chaotic, and the soldiers at the front fled frantically to the rear, but the soldiers at the rear only heard the voices from the front, not knowing what happened, so they continued to move forward. The two sides collided. Don't escape. Stabilize the formation for me. Yatiman roared hoarsely, trying to stabilize the front, but it was impossible. All the soldiers are in disarray. And the MG-42 on the street is still tilting its firepower. This bullet chain was fired in less than a minute. The machine gunner cursed, and if he was heard by the logistics soldier, he didn't know how he would curse. The bullets of these ammunition chains were strung up one by the logistics soldiers, and they were shot out in less than a minute. The results of the battle were very rich. The enemy's 1,000-man army has now suffered more than 300 casualties. The soldiers in front began to rout, and collided with the advancing soldiers in the rear. In an instant, it led to the collapse of the soldiers in the rear. They're messed up, soldiers. Go ahead. The squad leader yelled, raised the 98K in his hand and fired forward, moving forward. Immediately, 10 soldiers, including the machine gunner, picked up the machine guns, and they moved forward in a skirmish formation. The losers are coming. Run away. If you don't run away, you will die. Immediately, this move caused the group of soldiers to collapse again. Don't run away. Don't run away. Yatiman and several knights roared, and even beheaded several deserters with their own hands, but they still couldn't stop the collapse of the battle. Looking at the chaos, there were even 700 or 800 Nord soldiers scrambling to escape first. Looking at the Ross soldiers who only have 10 enemies and are still advancing. Yatiman collapsed. Enemies, there are only 10 people. He is the god of war of Nord, and he has fought brilliant victories and defeats throughout his life, but now his number is 100 times that of the enemy. But he lost, and the defeat was a complete mess. Knights. Yatiman looked at the 3 remaining knights beside him, and then at the Nord palace behind him. He let out a wry laugh. Once upon a time, there were thousands of knights in the Nord kingdom, but now there are only 3 people who protect the palace with him. Charge. Regardless of the defeated soldiers, Yatiman looked solemn again, and he led the remaining 3 knights to launch a final attack on the enemy. He lost. There are only 10 ridiculous enemies. But he is the war god of the Nords. Even if he is defeated and dies, he must die on the way to the charge. Their horses had already been killed during the shelling. But even if they don't have horses, they are knights guarding the Nord kingdom. The 4 war armor, holding a sword representing offense and a shield representing protection in their hands, and brazenly charged 10 Ross soldiers. Bang! Bang! 2 shots were fired, the shields did not give them the slightest protection, and the 2 Nord knights were shot and fell to the ground. Yatiman and the last knight didn't have the slightest fear in their hearts, they had already regarded death as home. Another round of shooting. The knight who followed Yatiman's charge also fell. A bullet pierced his helmeted head. Yatiman was also shot several times. The armor on his body was broken, and his whole body was stained red with blood. Already more than 60 years old, he stopped when he was seriously injured, but he did not fall down. The long sword in his hand was stuck on the ground, and every step he took would cause him to feel great pain. But he kept going. He is Nord's war god and Nord's knight. The last knight in Nord. With white beard and hair, he uttered his final roar. Charge! Charge! Bang 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 bang! Another round of gunfire. The old knight who had guarded Nord's life finally fell to the ground. The burden that had been on his shoulders for decades was finally lifted at this moment. With the death of the old general, the kingdom of Nord is about to die. Well, Looking at the enemy's corpse on the ground, the squad leader was in a slightly complicated mood. He sighed, but only regretfully. Being in different camps, all for their respective countries. The old general could die on the way to charge for the country, so he can do the same. Not only him, every Roth soldier can do it. For the country, for His Majesty the King, he died on the way to charge the enemy. For Your Majesty. Forward. Your Majesty, Yuan. 10 Roth soldiers stepped over the old general's body, shouting slogans and moving on. For the sake of His Majesty and the country, they also cannot stop. Nord Palace, the top of the castle erected the Nord Kingdom's blackbird flag, but the next moment the blackbird flag was taken down. Several Ross soldiers raised a flag with a black background and a red border, with a red dragon painted on it. Dragon flag waving. With the fall of Tino, the capital of the Nord Kingdom, the entire Nord Kingdom was occupied by the Kingdom of Love. The country that has been established for more than 100 years is also declared dead at this moment. Chapter 39th Noble Trial, 6/7. P.S. Today's 6th update, there is another update. The Kizi Kingdom borders the Orc grassland. On the endless grassland, 2 camps are confronting each other. On one side is the human camp, a coalition of 800,000 troops from the Kizi Kingdom and Hecate, Stia, Bandunka and other 16 member states of the ancient Tongxi Alliance Empire. On the other side is the 500,000 Orc army composed of the Orc Empire and several large Orc tribes. The cold wind is bleak, and countless grass blades are blowing. There are countless banners and spears of the armies on both sides, and the armor of the knights shines in the sun. The war horse snorted and moved restlessly. Corrosion Wolf, the giant wolf under the knight's seat, was dripping with saliva, corroding the underground weeds into a wasteland. The 800,000 human coalition forces are against the 500,000 Orc army. The drums of war are beating. The horn blew, and countless people and horses on both sides moved together. The heavy armored cavalry of the human coalition army collided with the Orc bull army in an instant like a torrent of steel. In the sky, a flying dragon more than 10 meters long spewed flames downwards. The javelin in the dragon knight's hand was thrown downwards instantly, and the huge impact pierced a 2.5-meter-tall Tauren wearing heavy armor on the ground. But the next moment, the flying dragon knight was instantly besieged by griffins, orcs, wolf riders from all directions. The battle lasted for 2 full days. In the end, the battle ended with the victory of the Orc Empire. The 800,000 human coalition was completely defeated. The fierce army of the Orc Empire was divided into several groups and attacked several surrounding human countries. The capital of Kizi Kingdom. Father, I won't go. Countless people in the palace are busy packing their things. A red-haired girl wearing exquisite iron armor and a long sword looked at her father, King Lat V of the Kizi Kingdom, with tears on her face. Our army has failed. The legions of the Orc Empire will soon cross the border and reach our capital. You go to the Kingdom of Los, and find Gu Yuan, the king of the Kingdom of Ross. Tell him the news that the Orc Empire has invaded. I heard that he just defeated the army of the Nord Kingdom and is conquering the Nord Kingdom. The Kingdom of Ross has been friends with us for generations. His army will definitely protect you. Let him send an army protect you from the Gutongxi Empire. Rat V violently pulled his daughter and drove her out of the gate of the palace. Close the door. The knights on either side slammed them shut. Listening to her daughter's constant shouting over there, and the sound of knocking on the door. Rattle V closed his eyes. I'm sorry daughter, I'm the king of Chi-Si Kingdom, anyone can leave, but I can't. Wars are raging, conquests are constantly raging, and the rise and fall of the country are constantly staged in this continent. The army led by Your Majesty the Nord Kingdom has been defeated. Country destruction integration kill value reward, 300,000. Get a 5-star lucky draw once. A system prompt sounded in Gu Yuan's mind. Gu Yuan was sitting on a high platform. On the left was Lena, who was wearing a small black military uniform and black boots, with a pistol on her waist and a pair of furry. There is a women's military cap between the ears. At this moment, she was standing with her head held high and her small chest puffed out, standing next to Gu Yuan, trying to make herself look a little more intimidating. It's a pity that no matter how you look at it, it still looks cute. On the right-hand side are Yar and Angelina, who are almost in the same attire. Long blonde hair was spread out on the back, and he was wearing a military cap with a large brim. It's just that these two hats look bigger. Angelina stood beside Gu Yuan. It seemed that only Gu Yuan was in her golden eyes. But Yar tilted her head, showing disdain for Gu Yuan. Below the high platform is another slightly higher platform. At this moment, there are more than 10 people tied up on the platform. And below the platform are densely packed civilians of the Nord Kingdom and a considerable number of serfs. The trial will begin now, and the trial process will be supervised by His Majesty the King of the Kingdom of Ross. Rhodes stood up in a pitch-black military uniform, and read aloud. What Gu Yuan is doing now is a trial. Those who were bound below were the remaining 10 or so nobles of the Nord Kingdom. Most of them are aristocrats who exploit civilians, oppress serfs, and only know how to make money. Now they are being tried by Gu Yuan, which is also to win the hearts of the people at the bottom of the Nord Kingdom. Kill them. God damn Viscount Maid, burn him to death. Kill the damn vampire nobles. Many people in the audience were shouting loudly, and they waved their hands angrily. First, Viscount Maid, after investigation, you have committed 18 crimes of R*****, 9 crimes of intentional murder, and 3 crimes of embezzling other people's property during the 5 years in the territory of Lin Town. Regarding these crimes, do you have anything else to say? Rhodes held a piece of paper in his hand and read aloud to him. Viscount Mado was tied up, and he shouted to Gu Yuan on the high platform, Your Majesty the King, I am wronged, I am willing to donate all my property to you, I am really wronged. Let's start the execution. There was only a faint voice from the high platform. Prepare. Rhodes yelled loudly, and 3 soldiers came behind Viscount Maid with 98k in their hands. Hearing the sound of pulling the bolt behind him, Viscount Maid's face was pale, and he seemed to have collapsed. Bang bang bang. 3 gunshots sounded, and Viscount Maid was shot in the head, left and right chest respectively, blood spattered, and the body fell to the ground. And the other nobles around were trembling all over, extremely trembling. One fat nobleman even urinated in fright. Chapter 40-34. 7/7. P.S. Today's Chapter 7, today's update is complete. The second person, Baron Lund. It is the trial platform, and it is also the execution ground. Accompanied by gunshots, a noble with a heinous name was shot to death on the spot, and the cheers of the people below grew more and more. Daughter, can you see in the sky, that fat pig noble has finally been punished. My husband, His Majesty the King avenged you today. Long live His Majesty the King. Some of the people in the audience cheered and some cried. This verdict greatly satisfied the minds of these common people, stabilized their mentality, and of course, won their hearts. In the end, there was only the last nobleman left on the stage. It was a young man in his early 20s. Rhodes turned a page of the information in his hand. After taking a look, he couldn't help but take another look at the young nobleman. Viscount Green Alcott, the territory of Cote Village, has no criminal record for 3 years, and killed Viscount Slayman a week ago. Is it true? Rhodes looked at Green, who nodded, and said, I killed Viscount Slayman because he wanted to stop people from attacking when Loth's army entered the city. The people in the audience were quiet. At this time, a group of ordinary civilians and serfs waved their hands and shouted loudly, Your Majesty, you can't kill Viscount Green. He is different from the vampire nobles in front. He never did anything bad. Yeah, I've heard of Viscount Green, he's a nice guy. The people below also nodded and talked one by one. Gu Yuan looked at Angelina next to him. Angelina nodded her head and said, The soldiers went door to door in Cote Village and people in the surrounding territories have all investigated and inquired, and confirmed that the situation is true, but this Green has never done anything to exploit civilians or oppress serfs. As for the crime, it was only a week ago that he killed another nobleman. Well, this Green can. Gu Yuan nodded and said, Forgive him. Hearing Gu Yuan's voice, Rhodes said loudly, Your Majesty announces that Green Alcott is acquitted. Long live Your Majesty. His Majesty the King is also a very good man. The group of villagers from Keat village below all smiled and praised Gu Yuan. At the same time, His Majesty the King will also announce that in the former Nord Kingdom, all noble privileges will be abolished, and only false titles will be retained. At the same time, you will be reduced by half of the annual tax. In the future, you only need to pay the country some taxes every year, and you don't need to pay other nobles, pay taxes. At this time, Luo Tesi strikes while the iron is hot and announces the decree issued by Ji Yuan. Long live your majesty. Thank you, your majesty. Ha 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 ha. Long live his majesty the king. Because of this sentence, the enthusiasm of all the people present reached its peak. They cheered and shouted loudly. It seems that a wave is about to form. Public sentiment value plus 100,000, ordinary people in the Nord Kingdom basically return to their hearts. Question mark. Your Majesty, please make persistent efforts to govern the country well. There was a smile on the corner of Ji Yuan's mouth. After annexing the land and population of the Nord Kingdom, the population of the Ross Kingdom reached 3.78 million. At the same time, Ji Yuan gave orders to build railway tracks and roads. The train track from Lost City to Tino City. And the highways extending in all directions between cities. At the same time, there are a series of business orders, manufacturing orders and other government orders to help people's livelihood. As long as the good things from Los Angeles are popularized in the new territory, and then one factory after another is opened, so that all the people can earn more and live well, basically everyone can return to their hearts. And a group of teachers also came to Tino City from Rose City, opened a school, and opened up the wisdom of the people. But now, Ji Yuan's kill value has reached 301,648. It's time to take another look at the system. Question mark. Lucky draw. Mall. Military technology tree. Ministry technology tree. 301,648, 213,560. Both the killing value and popularity value reached 6 figures. Ji Yuan just wanted to say, cool. Take a look at the system mall to see if there is anything good. In the past 2 months, a lot of good things have been refreshed, but because they have no kill value, they can only watch helplessly. But now the killing value is a full 300,000, even if another Quinn-style fighter is refreshed, it can afford it. T-3485's tank design and manufacturing drawings, price, 120,000. M59 Type 155 artillery manufacturing design drawings, price, 80,000. World War II German cutting-edge tank manufacturing design engineer team, 500 people, price, 50,000. ZPU-2 double-mounted 14.5 mm dual-purpose machine gun design and manufacture drawings, price, 15,000. Apocalypse tank design and manufacturing drawings, price, 670,000. Ji Yuan couldn't help taking a breath when he saw the items in the system mall. So conscientious. All good stuff. Not to mention the T-34 tank, the most famous tank in a big red country in World War II. The tank has a total combat weight of 32 tons, an engine power of 500 horsepower, a maximum road speed of 75 km per hour, and a maximum travel distance of 400 km. It is equipped with a 76mm tank gun as a type of tank with outstanding firepower, protection and mobility, and the T-3485 is a tank gun that is replaced from 76mm to 85mm, which is more powerful. T-34 is not only easy to use, but also easy to manufacture, and it is extremely cheap. Even a tractor factory can manufacture T-34 after modification. According to statistics, during World War II, a certain Red Power produced a total of 84,070 vehicles. As for the Type 59,155 mm artillery, this is a well-known artillery of the U.S. military in World War II. The ZPU-2 dual-mounted 14.5 mm high-level dual-purpose machine gun has a huge caliber as a machine gun. This is a very superior anti-aircraft machine gun with a rate of fire of 1,200 rounds per minute. The effective range reaches 1,000 meters. One shot is enough to instantly split a person in two. There is also the World War II German cutting-edge tank manufacturing and design engineer team. With these talents, Ji Yuan does not need to spend killing points to buy tank design drawings. He can even use these people to research the German Tiger tank of World War II. And these things, Ji Yuan can buy. Except for the last item, the design and manufacture drawings of the Apocalypse tank. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audio Wave to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.